Chapter 15 Drug Effect, got it? Feng Jiao gently smiled, not caring about it at all. On the other hand, Ziyun was very scared and hid behind Feng Jiao. Ziyun thought to herself, heavens, she actually asked the head of Night Rakshasa for money just now. Is she crazy? Fortunately, she was lucky enough to have taken a small life. Aren't you afraid of my master's name? Yi Weiyang looked at the girl in front of him. Her beautiful eyes contained water, and her seductive chapter arm rippled outwards. Her small lips slightly curled up, and her red lips slightly opened in an attempt to attract others to kiss her. This was a woman who exuded seductive chapter arm from her bones. Abruptly, Yi Weiyang's hand that was holding the spirit serpent sword trembled slightly. He turned his face away, not daring to look at Su Chapter, this coquettish girl. Do you want to hear the answer? Feng Jiao waved at him with a sweet smile. Yi Weiyang subconsciously nodded his head. However, after Feng Jiao whispered a few words into his ear, his face instantly turned red, and he almost cursed out at her. If not for his master's presence, Yi Weiyang thought, he would have definitely cut her down with his spirit serpent sword. Yi Weiyang never thought that Feng Jiao would be so bold as to actually whisper in his ear, "Don't be afraid, it's because of you." These ambiguous words made Yi Weiyang's handsome face turn unnatural red. Cough. Pretend I didn't ask. Yi Weiyang noticed his master Yi Zhanghai's mischievous gaze on him. He immediately coughed a few times to conceal his embarrassment. Weiyang, since that's the case, you should stay here and protect this girl. Anyway, 1 month will pass in the blink of an eye. Soon I still have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. Yi Zhanghai raised his hand and used his sleeve to wipe his greasy mouth. Glimmers danced in his eyes, as if he had thought of something. He walked up to Yi Weiyang and patted him on the shoulder. Geezer, what if your disciple doesn't listen to me? Seeing that Yi Zhanghai was about to leave, Feng Jiao immediately thought of a big problem. Weiyang. Yi Zhanghai exerted force to teach Chapter Yi Weiyang a lesson. Master? Got it. Damn it, it's all this woman. He had been taught a lesson by his Chapter. Yi Zhanghai nodded, and with a whoosh, he kept the silver flute. Immediately, he nimbly flew over the walls and left the begonia garden. Yi Weiyang, this is an order from your beloved master. Be good, you have to listen to him. When Feng Jiao thought of eating the beautiful man tonight, her delicate face was full of excitement. Chapter added a little bit more light to her pretty face. Winking her pair of bright and watery eyes, she spoke sweetly to Yi Weiyang. All right, for the sake of my master's orders, I, Yi Weiyang, will tolerate it. His master was right, it would only be a month. A man can bend and bend. Ziyun, quick. Go down to the cellar and get some ice. We'll have something to quench our thirst after dinner. Feng Jiao looked up at the blazing sun, then glanced at the pretty boy next to her. After Ziyun received the order, she immediately left. Woman, don't keep looking at me. This was the first time Yi Weiyang had been stared at by a girl for Su Chapter a long time. His handsome face became even redder. Like a steamed crab, this was more fun. Feng Jiao immediately got playful. She wanted to take a good look at this man's mental fortitude. Yi Weiyang, your name is very nice to listen to. Oh, don't call me woman, I also have a name. My name is Feng Jiao. You can simply call me Yaoa like my father. Feng Jiao playfully played with her inky black hair on her chapterist as she said with a bright smile. Yaoa, he was obeying his master's orders to listen to her, so he shouted, but why? When he called out the girl's maiden name, his gaze was fixed on her delicate face. What was wrong with him? Could it be that he was bewitched? Good boy. Feng Jiao giggled. Hearing this, Yi Weiyang's mouth twitched violently. At this moment, he was looking forward to seeing that little girl called Ziyun come back so that he wouldn't have to face this little girl alone. Eldest miss, I've brought the ice cubes. Ziyun quickly ran over with a huge silver bowl in her hands. You guys will have your blessings later. Blessing? Hearing this, Yi Weiyang's lips curved up in a smile. Could it be that he also had a share? The night was cold as water. The night scenery in the mansion was undoubtedly wonderful. The lush forest bamboo, the plain flower vanilla. Bring green water into the garden, moonlight, with a silver scale of microwave. The clear light was clear and the night breeze was chapterly. After dinner, in the main house of the begonia garden, Feng Jiao handed a bowl of mung bean iced sand to Ziyun and Yi Weiyang. "Eldest miss, is this what you spent 6 hours on?" Ziyun sniffed the aroma and thought that it should be very tasty. Her eyes lit up and her fingers began to move. "That's right, hurry up and eat it. I only made 3 servings. Yi Weiyang, you eat too. This is called the brilliant vital force." She had managed to put some material on it, hoping to put him down so that she could make it easy. She hoped he ate it so that his little brother could show off his might, so that both sides would want to die. Thinking of this, a light flashed across Feng Jiao's eyes, and her beautiful face became even more flirtatious and attentive. Yi Weiyang's hands were trembling as he took the bowl and the spoon. This was the first time a girl personally cooked food for him. He lowered his eyes to look at the exquisite icy sand. Within the lush greenery, snowflakes drifted down. The base was shaped like a lotus flower carved from watermelon, vivid and lifelike, causing one to drool at the sight of it. Therefore, while Feng Jiao encouraged him to eat, he first frowned, then he used a silver spoon to scoop a spoonful and gently put it in his mouth. The taste was icy cold and very tasty. Why was Feng Jiao looking at Yi Weiyang with Su chapter and urgent and what chapterful eye? It was because she was afraid that Yi Weiyang wouldn't even take a bite. In that case, her intention would be in vain. Bingo! He really ate it. Amazing! Amazing! Tonight she could enjoy his courage. She wondered if he had any experience in that area? Ziyun couldn't understand why her eldest young miss was looking at him like a hunter looking at his prey. She thought she was seeing things. "Ziyun, don't look at me like that. Hurry up and eat then eat. Hurry up and rest. I don't need you to serve me here. Aren't you tired after a whole day?" In fact, she had put sleep pills in Ziyun's bowl. If Ziyun were to fall asleep next, she would definitely wake up in the morning. "Oh, all right, eldest miss. Your mung bean iced sand is really delicious." Ziyun obediently finished her meal and then took the 3 dishes and spoons to the kitchapterin. "Yi Weiyang, why aren't you saying anything?" Feng Jiao looked at him stroking the tassel on the spirit serpent sword sheath and asked in confusion, "Weird, why hasn't he acted up yet?" "Yao that, I sand. Delicious." Yi Weiyang stammered as he blushed again after being stared at by Feng Jiao. Is that all you got?" Feng Jiao slowly approachaptered him, seemingly carelessly raising her arm to 2-chapter his butt. What? What should he say? Yi Weiyang didn't dare look her in the eye anymore, because he felt an inexplicable fire ignite in his chapterist, incessantly jumping and spreading in all directions. All right, this silly, unromantic goose. Let her remind him. "Weiyang, do you think I'm pretty?" Feng Jiao smiled sweetly with her beautiful eyes looking around like a fairy. Feng Jiao didn't know how enticing that smile on her face right now was, making people's imaginations go wild. Yi Weiyang's beautiful eyes became more and more profound, becoming more and more infatuated with him. He unconsciously stared at that tender and enticing red lips, his heart violently beating. He had a strong desire in his heart, as if he was tasting that soft, sweet, fragrant lips. No, he can't be like this. His T-chapter had taught him to be Yaoer's bodyguard before he left, so how could he be so frivolous towards her? He tried hard to operate his martial arts to resist the score-chaptering heat, but his flawless handsome face was as red as the sun. At this moment, Feng Jiao knew clearly in her heart that Yi Weiyang was about to explode. Although there were no emotions in his sharp face and her pair of obsidian-like eyes, they were so enchaptranting that her eyes were drawn in. His straight nose seemed particularly heroic, and his thin lips were tightly pursed, his sword-like eyebrows were slightly knitted, as if he was unhappy. It was obvious that he was working hard to suppress the emotions within his body. Seeing him like this, Feng Jiao was even more happy inside. The name of this medicine was Vigorous. As expected, Yi Weiyang really did have a blessing. "Don't come near me." He had no chapteroise but to look at her, and did not know if it was because of the candlelight. Right now, her complexion was rosy, like a pea chapter blossom on a spring day, and her beautiful eyes shining with starlight stared straight at him, her pink and tender lips making people want to kiss her. Chapter 16 Lost Control. Feng Jiao raised her head to look at Yi Weiyang. Due to the effects of the medicine, his face was blushing, and his eyes were still covered by a dense mist. Weiyang, why couldn't I get close to you? Feng Jiao looked at the pretty boy in front of her as she playfully licked her lips. She was drooling with desire, wanting to throw herself at him. But Yi Weiyang had some martial arts. Could it be that he hadn't been defeated yet, and then he took her life in one strike? This was the era of cold weapons. While Feng Jiao was lost in her thoughts, she heard him talking. Did you put something strange in the mung bean ice sand I ate? Although he was clean, he was a normal man. He knew more or less how his body reacted. Therefore, Yi Weiyang nimbly pulled out the spirit serpent sword with his right hand. With a flash of white light, the sharp sword edge was already placed on Feng Jiao's neck. Chapter was as fine as a swan's neck. First move the spirit serpent sword. Go away. I'm so scared. Feng Jiao was frightened by this sudden chapter range. Of course, she was pretending. She thought that she was playing as the fragile young lady of the Prime Minister, so it was only right for her to react in Su chapter away. I know, I'm afraid. You gave me that strange thing? He was angry. Her voice was gloomy, causing Feng Jiao to secretly roll her eyes. I'm not scared of you, I just purposely gave you a drop of medicine. I wouldn't dare next time. Really? She quickly expressed her stance. The tip of her sword was cold to the 2 chapter, and she really wanted to get along with him. What? There's still a next time. Yi Weiyang fell into a mess after hearing these words. No. I really don't dare to do that. Feng Jiao quickly lowered her head bashfully. Well, you look good. She said this very quietly. Forget it, I'll let you off this time. Quick, bring the antidote. Yi Weiyang never thought that the medicine that little girl Feng Jiao had given him was a special medicine that she had developed herself. That was why he thought that Feng Jiao, the person who had administered the antidote, would definitely have the cure. What? Cure? Feng Jiao was nearly petrified when she heard this. Weiyang. No cure, because I would be your best cure. Feng Jiao's delicate and chapter-arming eyes were filled with a few drops of tears. Move the spirit serpent sword away. What do you mean? Yi Weiyang was furious at these words. Damned woman, he almost couldn't bear it any longer. This medicine was too fierce, and he only felt that his little Weiyang was like a bamboo shoot emerging from the earth, urgently needing sweet nectar to nourish himself. The situation of his body was getting more and more unoptimistic. It was very likely that he would turn into a hidden super beast in the next second. Angrily, the spirit serpent sword shook. Accompanied by an sound, Feng Jiao's tender and white neck got a bloody scar. I'm sorry, Yi Weiyang immediately used all the strength in his body to retract the spirit serpent sword. You don't have to apologize to me. Because we're even. Painful, Feng Jiao pin-chaptered her thigh secretly, finally squeezed out some tears as she sobbed with a teary face. This is my boudoir. Your room is in the other. I need to rest now. Get out. It hurts. Feng Jiao walked to the door, feigning anger. She opened the door, but didn't even raise her eyes, waving her hand to signal him to quickly leave. Of course, Feng Jiao knew. She had already calculated the amount of medicine she had used. After a while, no matter how good his martial arts were, he wouldn't be able to withstand the powerful effect of boiled vital energy. She cleaned up and waited for the feast. Yi Weiyang wanted to criticize her, but he found that when he saw the tears dripping down her chapteriques, he didn't say a single word of reproach chapter. Close the door. Yi Weiyang didn't want others to see his current awkward state. If others saw it, he would lose face. In his desperation, he forgot that it was the dead of night. Why? After asking, Feng Jiao intentionally glanced at Yi Weiyang with her beautiful pea-chapter-colored eyes. Well, it was a big one. It seemed that the medicine was quite effective. Why are you talking so mu-chapter nonsense? Yi Weiyang could only take out his own palm and close the door with a creak. Tell me, You just gave me. What drug is it? In his heart, he had pretty much guessed 80 to 90%, but he didn't dare to confirm it. Therefore, he grabbed Feng Jiao's shoulders and asked. I dare not say. After saying this, Feng Jiao pushed him away, quickly dashing into the inner room, and then sat down on the fragrant pear blossom woodwork chapter with her head lowered. You did it on purpose, didn't you? He asked. With a clap, the lock on the door was lowered. Yi Weiyang chaptered her unyielding retreat. After being completely baffled, he was finally unable to resist, so he took off his outer garment to conceal himself. Quickly opening the door, he walked to the side of the ancient well, hanging 12 buckets of cold water, but still unable to extinguish the fire. Damn it! He finally understood that the medicine he had taken was definitely not an ordinary one. Forget it, Master always asked him to find a woman to have a grand chapter-illed for him to play with. Chapter 17 Promise 1. He glanced at the flickering candlelight on the windowsill and pondered for a moment. Feng Jiao was still in her room, looking at the hourglass. She thought to herself, strange, why has it been so long? How good is that fool's patience? She was bored to death sitting in front of the bronze mirror with lotus petals, pulling out gold steps and other accessories. She was combing her hair with a white jade horn when she heard the knocks on the door. Feng Jiao, open the door. Feng Jiao frowned when she heard this. Could it be that he had forced the boiled vital energy out of his body? At this moment, was he here for revenge? Moments later, she picked up a shiny golden gate, hid it in her wide sleeve, and walked towards the door. When she opened the door and saw his naked upper body, she understood everything. He had come to throw himself into her arms. Great, finally. Why are you looking for me? The tear marks from earlier had disappeared. At this moment, she was smiling seductively like a myriad of ephemeral flowers blooming at the same time. She was simply too beautiful to look at. Feng Jiao's chaptered-like breath combined with her chapter-arming face made Yi Weiyang feel more and more uncomfortable. Therefore, he hurriedly lifted his feet and closed the door. After that, he breathed out hot and chapterotic breath onto Feng Jiao's smooth and exquisite earlobes. He also impatiently used his strong and powerful arms to grab onto Feng Jiao's delicate body, while his thin and soft beautiful lips hurriedly covered her beautiful chapterary lips. No, Feng Jiao was secretly annoyed. Heavens, did she put too much chapter dope? The current him is so fierce. I want you. I will take you as my wife. After he spoke those words with a sonorous voice, his slender and forceful fingers untied her clothes. I want you. I will take you as my wife. No, she, Feng Jiao, didn't need Su chapter a promise. Perhaps it was because of the tight knots on her clothes. The white dress was torn. This was enough to prove Yi Weiyang's rudeness and impatience. Under the intense control of the medicinal effect, Yi Weiyang suddenly hugged Feng Jiao, walking towards the pear blossom tree blossom bed. Both of them fell down. With a wave of her palm, the light purple veil gently fell down. Feng Jiao saw that his hand was not honest, so she didn't back down either. She took one of his python belts with her delicate hand. This was the first time that Yi Weiyang had done Su chapter a thing. His movements were a little rough, and when he heard Feng Jiao cry out in pain, he stopped for a moment, his thin lips slightly parted as he said, Yaoer, I'm sorry, I will be gentler. When Feng Jiao heard this, a trace of warmth flashed across her heart. He knew how to show mercy to women. After a slight smile, her eyes slightly sparkled. She could really feel that he had become a little gentler, so she replied with a Strange, wasn't the body she possessed was unfaithful to the Qi King? Yao, you are my first woman. From the time Yi Weiyang kissed her, to his subsequent deft kiss, it was enough to prove that his words were true. No wonder he had only kissed her, and he had been looking in the wrong place. He still needed her to remind him. Just as she thought about this, Feng Jiao grimaced in pain. Who the hell said she was being unfaithful? So painful, damn it. She was still virgin. Bullshit. Once she found out who was slandering her for her innocence, she would definitely give that person a good lesson. Don't worry, Yao, I will never marry anyone but you in my life. Even if she was the daughter of the Prime Minister, so what? His eyes flashed with joy and treasure as he lowered his gaze to look at the bright red plum blossom that had appeared on the snow-white bed sheets. Come on, why keep promising her? She didn't need these promises. Forget it, he was an ancient person. It definitely didn't make sense for her to tell him all of this. Besides, she was in extreme pain right now, as if she had been run over by a tank. Her body was stiff and she didn't want to move at all. Chapter 18 Promise to Yao. I feel more comfortable now. I didn't have that strong desire just now. I want you. But I still think. I really want that. And just now. Just now. If that's the case, Yi Weiyang hugged her delicate body that was as soft as a feather, speaking incoherently with a reddened face. You want it, you continue. I'm going to sleep? Phew. Feng Jiao was furious when she heard this. What do you mean more comfortable? He was simply very comfortable, okay? He actually wanted a few more rounds with her? Did he think she was an invincible woman? Sweat. Then she might as well go to sleep. Yao, seeing her fall asleep, Yi Weiyang looked speech-chapterlessly at little Weiyang. Her face was full of black lines and what was he to do now? It was another early morning when he woke up. The bright sunlight outside the window had long since shone through the window and into the room. Feng Jiao wanted to turn over, but she felt a small porcelain bottle close to her little butt. Out of reflex, she nimbly grabbed onto the small porcelain bottle, wanting to throw down her embroidered bed. Yao, do you want to murder your husband? Yi Weiyang painfully slapped away her delicate hand. My husband? Aren't you my bodyguard? Why are you sleeping beside me? Feng Jiao drowsily looked at him, her face full of shock. After she recalled, she started to play dumb in the next second. When Yi Weiyang heard Feng Jiao's words, the corner of her mouth twitch-chaptered. Wasn't it her intention that he could sleep by her side? Had she not given him the strange thing herself? Yao, my wife, did you really forget the fact that you ate me last night? Yi Weiyang stared at her little face, gnashing his teeth as he asked. Damn it, this woman's hand strength is really great. His little Weiyang shouldn't be wasted by her. Did I? Of course she remembered. Last night, she had indeed placed medicine in the mung bean frozen sand she had fed him. After that, his medicine took effect, and he and she did it. Yes. Yi Weiyang nodded affirmatively. Feng Jiao slightly narrowed her eyes, looking at him under the silk brocade. He had a broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Chapter could be said to be a perfect body with a golden ratio. Oh, she was really lucky last night, but when she thought about the pain she was still feeling under her body, she couldn't help but fiercely looked at him and even kicked him. The silk brocade on her body quietly slid down. This time, it fell on top of the white pigeon. That sparkling and translucent luster was like a baby's skin, causing Yi Weiyang's Adam's apple to unconsciously slide. Yao, you were so bad. You were so chapter-arming last night. How could you be as fierce as a yaksha now? This difference in treatment made Yi Weiyang furrow his brows. He was thinking if he and her were to get married in the future, would she kick him every morning? Hey, who are you calling a yaksha? If you have the guts, say it again. Feng Jiao kicked him again, this time with even more force. I don't dare to. Yi Weiyang recalled that his master wanted him to listen to Yao. Now that Yao was his woman, he should have the right to call her his wife. Does it hurt? She asked if he hurt when she kicked him. It doesn't hurt. Because you are my wife. His beautiful and deep eyes looked at her, and a trace of a doting smile appeared on his beautiful lips. Feng Jiao didn't expect Yi Weiyang to beg her for mercy. He even called her wife after he begged for mercy. When she heard this, her bright eyes sparkled as she thought to herself, wasn't her strength just a little too strong? At this moment, she felt a little guilty. Yi Weiyang, you're not allowed to call me wife. Because I will not marry to you. Feng Jiao immediately regained her composure, waved her arms and corrected him. My wife, do you dislike my identity? Yi Weiyang raised his head slightly, and what he saw was the scene that would make one's nose bleed. Her exquisite figure, her graceful and delicate skin, and her pair of lotus arms dancing in the air. I said, don't call me wife. Why are you still yelling? Feng Jiao climbed off the embroidered bed, took a set of clean clothes from the wardrobe and put them on. Why are you still looking at me? Get up quickly. Have you forgotten your master's order? She still remembered that old man Yi Canghai had told Yi Weiyang to listen to her. So she winced and urged him to get up. Chapter 19 Disheveled. My wife, I will wait for my master to arrive. I will tell him about our current intimate relationship. After that, I will find a mat chapter maker to come to Prime Minister's mansion to propose, all right? While Yi Weiyang put on his clothes, he spoke to her in a serious tone. This isn't good, is it? If you say so, then it will ruin my name. How about we take this matter a little bit more slowly? Don't you and I still have a month to spend together? In that way, we can take it easy and nurture our relationship. Feng Jiao thought that since Yi Canghai said that Yi Weiyang was stupid, there must be a reason. Why not use delaying tactics to fool him? In any case, a month's time was neither long nor short, and no one knew what had happened. However, she didn't expect that Yi Canghai would come looking for Yi Weiyang so early in the morning. Besides, how could she, Feng Jiao, give up the entire forest for a tree? Yi Weiyang was startled when he heard this. After a while, he regained his composure. My wife? I'm sorry. I did not consider that. Because of his passion, his originally cold eyes now seemed to have melted. He looked very soft and watery as he raised his eyes to look at Feng Jiao. It's not too late for you to know, Feng Jiao said with a beaming smile. She crossed her arms, calmly looked at him and said in a soft voice, looks like this plan is still very useful. See, he already has a tendency to agree. My wife, I'm willing to wait. Yi Weiyang gracefully straightened his clothes, then gently walked towards Feng Jiao. He picked her up and hugged her tightly. No matter how long it takes, I'm willing to wait. I've only heard that there is a woman in the Prime Minister's mansion who has an engagement with the Emperor's seventh son. But is that woman you or your other sister? A trace of worry appeared in Yi Weiyang's eyes. It's me, but the day before yesterday, I had already broken off the engagement with the king of Qi, Emperor's seventh son, so the official cancellation of the engagement still had to wait for the king's cancellation of the marriage contract. She didn't want to lie to him, so she chapterosed to tell him the truth. His wife had been annulled? Poor her. No, he should be happy, because that meant that in the future his wife would only be his. A sweet smile formed on his lips, making his rosy lips seem even more chapter-arming and alluring. Weiyang, actually you should laugh more. I think that when you smile, you look very pretty. Feng Jiao praised without hesitation. My wife, it seems like master has come. I heard his flute music. Let's go out and take a look. Yi Weiyang's hearing was extremely good. He could hear Yi Canghai playing the silver flute from far away. Then why aren't you leaving? Feng Jiao asked puzzledly. She didn't understand why Yi Weiyang would use the spirit serpent sword to cut off a small piece of the bedsheet that proved she was virgin. My wife, I am your husband. I should take good care of this falling red flower. Yi Weiyang said as if it was a matter of course. Feng Jiao was in a mess. It was one thing for this man to keep the falling red flower, but why did he still call her his wife? Yi Weiyang, call me Yao. You're not allowed to call me wife. All right, I'll listen to my wife. After Yi Weiyang carefully put it away, he pulled Feng Jiao's little hand to open the door to the fragrant crabapple garden. The bright sun hung high in the sky as the dazzling fireball pierced through the clouds in the east. The vast sky was slanted and projected rays of light. The bright red golden light made the entire sky seem dreamy and illusory, as if it was in full swing. The sunlight shone on the petals of the crabapple blossoms with dewdrops. They were exceptionally coquettish, gorgeous, and colorful, causing people to stare unblinkingly. Master, you're here? Yi Weiyang saw that Yi Canghai had stopped playing the flute. His gaze rested on the crabapple blossoms. Little disciple Weiyang, how did you come out of her room with this girl? When Yi Canghai heard this, he suddenly turned around. He thoughtfully looked at the two of them, his gaze stopping on Feng Jiao at one moment, then on Yi Weiyang at the other. In the end, his gaze was fixed on the two people's hands. Master, Yi Weiyang didn't know how to explain, but his hand subconsciously tightened around Feng Jiao's little hand. Old man, I almost tripped just now. Fortunately, this stupid disciple of yours held me back. But he is still foolishly pulling me, not willing to let go. Feng Jiao immediately explained it with a smile, taking out her little hand without the slightest bit of shyness. Su chapter a magnanimous girl made Yi Songhai's impression of her increase greatly. Only Su chapter a girl was worthy to stand by the side of his stupid disciple. If only these two little things really had something good to say. Right, old man, you came to my begonia garden so early in the morning to try out my cooking? Seeing him come so early, Feng Jiao guessed. No, little girl, I have something to discuss with you. Weiyang is a chapter-illed. He has some urgent matters at home and must be taken back to deal with them. So, I brought the banknotes you mentioned today. Although Yi Songhai really wanted this dumb disciple to get along with this little girl, he had to make a chapteroise. There's no need for the money. I just want him to be my personal bodyguard for 29 days when he's free next time. Damn old man, she just realized last night that it was her first time with him, and she didn't feel like she wanted to die at all. He actually wanted to take Weiyang away now. She really couldn't bear to part with it. As if her beloved toy were about to be taken away, she asked weakly, "Can he not leave?" "I'm sorry, Yaoer, but I will definitely deal with this matter as soon as possible. I will rush back to find you." Yi Weiyang thought about his family's mess and felt worried, but he promised. Hearing his words, Feng Jiao could only agree. Cut the scene to Plum Court, Feng Jiqiong's residence. Second miss, yesterday I heard from Wang Hu that before you and Princess Lingxi went to the begonia garden, young Master Su went to find the eldest Mississippi. However, when young Master Su came out, Wang Hu said that he was disheveled. Kai Dai vividly said what Wang Hu said, word for word, to Feng Jiqiong. Kai Dai, disheveled? When Feng Jiqiong heard this, she frowned. Her attention was focused on that word. That's what Wang Hu said. Kai Dai was still a virgin girl. She naturally did not understand the meaning behind these words. However, Feng Jiqiong thought about how her cousin Su Mian hated Feng Jiao. She felt that this matter wouldn't be the same as what Wang Hu had said. However, what Wang Hu had said made her come up with a good plan to deal with Feng Jiao. 3 days later, Feng Jiqiong's little girl, Kai Dai, appeared at the entrance of the begonia garden. She smiled and said that her second miss had invited Feng Jiao to the back garden in the evening to enjoy the snow epiphyllum and narrate her sisterhood. What's so nice about the snow epiphyllum? I just want to sleep. When Feng Jiao heard this, she lazily replied without raising her eyes. She was too busy with her beauty and planning to hunt the pretty boy. She didn't have the leisure to play chapterildish games with that despicable girl, Feng Jiqiong. Therefore, she flatly refused. Chapter 20 Meet Your Prey. Kai Dai thought about the things Feng Jiqiong had told her to do, and if she didn't finish it, when she returned to the Plum Court, she would definitely be whipped by her. Thus, she thought about how in the past, although the eldest miss was virtuous and noble, she was kind-hearted. After thinking about this, Kai Dai kneeled down in the direction of Feng Jiao. Eldest miss, this servant begs your pity. If this servant can't invite eldest miss, this servant will definitely be scolded by second miss when I go back. Woo, eldest miss, you have a bodhisattva's heart, you definitely won't be able to bear this servant's pain. Eldest miss, this servant will kowtow to you now. In short, Kai Dai kept kowtowing to Feng Jiao. Perhaps it was for the sake of her life, but she kept kowtowing so hard that her white forehead started to ooze scarlet blood beads. Feng Jiao continued to rest with her eyes closed. She didn't expect that Feng Jiqiong's personal girl had some tricks up her sleeve. She knew how to trick her into joining the bet. Unfortunately, she didn't respond, so she let Kai Dai kneel. Kai Dai saw that her forehead was covered in blood. How could eldest miss not feel any pity? Kai Dai, why aren't you kowtowing anymore? Could it be that you are tired and wants to rest and continue kowtowing? Seeing that she didn't hear the sound of kowtowing for quite a while, Feng Jiao slowly raised her eyelids. She raised her hand and gently fanned the cool breeze, asking leisurely. The warm wind was slow, the crabapple blossoms in the yard gently fell down, sparkling like snow, captivating red like a pail, falling on the delicate beauty's dress. Kai Dai raised her head and blankly stared at Feng Jiao bathed in sunlight and rain of flowers. She immediately felt like a fairy, sacred and inviolable. For some reason, Kai Dai was scared by Feng Jiao's powerful aura and shivered, not saying a word. Ziyun, go get a bowl of water for Kai Dai to quench her thirst. It's been Su a hot day and she's been kowtowing for so long. She must be thirsty. Feng Jiao said with a gentle and virtuous tone, as if Kai Dai kowtowing was a natural thing for her. She even considerately ordered Ziyun to bring Kai Dai a bottle of water to quench her thirst. Ziyun received a hint from her eldest Miss Gaze and walked over with a broken porcelain bowl filled with hot water. Kai Dai looked at the bowl of water that Ziyun handed over, her eyes filled with resentment. Was it easy for her, Kai Dai? After kneeling for nearly an hour, her eldest young miss did not ask her to stand up, and she even gave her a broken porcelain bowl to drink. However, she was indeed thirsty. Thus, she lowered her eyes, concealing the resentment in her eyes. She wanted to raise her hand to receive the broken porcelain bowl on the tray in Ziyun's hand. As soon as she caught the broken porcelain bowl, she grimaced from the heat of the water. This time, Kai Dai did not want to feel wronged, she could only curse out loud, a despicable woman that no one wants. You deserve to be annulled by the prince. After saying that, Kai Dai coldly threw the broken porcelain bowl in Feng Jiao's direction. Fortunately, Feng Jiao had dodged well, avoiding that broken porcelain bowl. Otherwise, she would have her skin wounded. How dare you, slut! It's one thing to slander my name, but you actually plotted against me, Ziyun. Go, slap her mouth. When Feng Jiao saw that Kai Dai had shed her image as the miserable female chapter actor, she couldn't be bothered to put on an act with her. She directly called out for Ziyun to take action. After Ziyun received the order, she drew Kai Dai's face. How could Kai Dai be willing to let her hit? She quickly grabbed Ziyun's hair. What exactly happened that caused the maidservants to fight each other? How is this proper? It turned out that it was Feng Wucai who had come to the begonia garden to see Feng Jiao, this legitimate daughter. Yao, oh, what's wrong with them? Feng Wucai was not in a good mood because of how the political parties were trying to involve him in. Now that he saw his maidservants acting so vulgarly, he became even more infuriated. Father, Kai Dai said that Yaoer is a despicable woman that no one wants. Ziyun was still angry, so she started arguing with her. This Kai Dai still wanted to pluck Ziyun's hair. Why do you think this servant is so arrogant? Father, you have to help Yaoer. Feng Jiao thought, okay, since you want to play a chapterildish game with me, we can only reluctantly keep you company. However, it's hard to say who will win the fight. What, Kai Dai? Are you really scolding eldest miss? Feng Wankai was so angry that his eyes were wide open and he raised his foot to kick Kai Dai. Bit chapter. Men, take the family law. Butler Feng, who was behind Feng Wankai, saw the expression on the old master's face and knew that Kai Dai was in trouble. Thus, Butler Feng conveniently signaled Wang Hu, who was guarding the door, and signaled him to call first wife Su Qiaoyin over. This Su Qiaoyin was Feng Jiqiong's mother, who was also Su Mayan's aunt. Father, forget it, Kai Dai might not mean tot, but someone must have said it, that's why Kai Dai said that about Yaoer. Feng Jiao thought, using family law, wouldn't it be too easy for Kai Dai, that bit chapter? As the night demon's golden killer, she had ways of torturing others, so she asked for mercy. Humph. Feng Wucai coldly glanced at Kai Dai's small body on the ground, coldly snorting. Father, this little girl Kai Dai has been with little sister Jiqiong for so long without any A-chapter bereavements, but work hard. So mu-chapter effort is needed to take care of little sister Jiqiong. Dad, don't punish her too seriously. It's better to give little sister Jiqiong face and punish her with half a month's worth of silver. The more Feng Jiao continued, the more Kai Dai felt guilty. Previously, she had gone overboard with her scolding of the eldest miss. After all, she had been criticized as being unwanted by others. WJ chapter was indeed very hurtful. Old master, this servant is wrong, this servant is wrong. Old master, please give this servant a chapterance. Woo-woo, this time, it was Kai Dai who was really crying. Father, what are you doing to punish Kai Dai? Feng Jiqiong happened to be going to the Melody Pavilion to pay her respects. After hearing Wang Hu's report, She hurriedly came with her mother, Su Qiaoyin. Strange, didn't Kai Dai help her by inviting Feng Jiao to what chapter's snow epiphyllum tonight? Why did Kai Dai look like she had been beaten up? Could it have been Feng Jiao's doing? Therefore, Feng Jiqiong's gaze suddenly became sharp. Suddenly, she remembered that her father was beside her. No matter what, she must pretend to be a good sister, so that father could arrange her marriage to the king of Qi as soon as possible. All right, let's do it according to Yaoer's wishes today. Kai Dai, hurry up and thank the young miss. Feng Wucai thought about the chapter-reaming of the chapter-children in the backyard and felt a little sorry for the legitimate daughter. Her mother had died early. Among all the chapter-children, he liked Feng Jiao the most. Yes, master, this servant thanks eldest miss for her forgiveness. Kai Dai's eyes inadvertently caught her second young miss' sinister gaze. She thought about her second young miss' vicious methods and all the hairs on her body stood up. Feng Jiao said with a faint smile, "No need to thank me. You can take care of yourself from now on. Later, enjoy my torturous journey." All the servants looked at eldest Miss Bodhisattva's smile and thought to themselves, "What a beautiful smile, what a beautiful eldest Mississippi. What a pity to actually have her marriage annulled by the king of Qi." The servants, who had originally wanted to laugh at the begonia garden, all had expressions of pity on their faces. They were all worried that the kind-hearted eldest miss would find a good home in the end. After seeing her father and mother leave the begonia garden together, although Feng Jiao was angry at her father's refusal, she still did not give up and asked again, "Elder sister, how about we enjoy snow epiphyllum in the back garden tonight? I've even invited the other young masters and misses of the venerable families. And fireworks at night. What do you say to having fun together?" "Wait, noble young master? That means there will be good prey tonight." Feng Jiao pretended to be silent for a moment, then she gently smiled and said, "Since little sister Jiqiong has invited me so many times, wouldn't it be too unreasonable if big sister refused again? How about this, I will definitely be there tonight." "That's good." Hearing this, Feng Jiqiong was extremely excited. It seemed that tonight's plan was prepared for everything but the east wind. The moon hung in the sky, and a gentle breeze blew past. In an instant, the sparkling moonlight scattered down like a silver ray of light, covering the entire garden with a layer of silver mist. In the back garden of the Prime Minister's mansion, the snow epiphyllum were about to bloom in another 2 hours. At this moment, many familiar faces had already gathered. Feng Jiao heard people talking about her and King of Qi's engagement from afar. "Qiong, what did you invite that shameless woman for?" The one who spoke was Su Mayan. He had already seen Feng Jiao's graceful figure from far away. It had obstructed the matter of him being seduced by her earlier, so he hated her even more. Chapter 21 Make it difficult. Feng Jiao acted as if she didn't hear Su Mayan's words and directly walked into the moon-shaped pavilion in the middle of the garden. Her smile was so light that people couldn't tell what she was thinking. She swept her gaze in all 4 directions. Almost all of the people she knew were here: City Yele, Beiding Ziqian, Wen Xingyuan, and even the Xinyuan siblings. However, the beautiful woman beside Beiding Ziqian looked very similar to Beitang Ziqian. Wait, why is Li Minken among them? Could it be that he was also a scion of a noble family? As for the 3 men and 2 women, she was not very familiar with them. "Sister, why have you only just arrived?" "But it's not too late. This ephemeral snow flower won't bloom for at least another 2 hours. Feng Jiqiong glanced at Feng Jiao, immediately stopping her conversation with Xianyuan Lingxi. Feng Jiao mumbled when she saw these 2 stupid women together again. It seemed that she hadn't succeeded in taunting them. It seemed that she had to work harder. Feng Jiqiong's how-to sister focused the attention of these men and women on Feng Jiao. Li Minkan was very surprised to see Feng Jiao here. He thought that if the 2 met again, they wouldn't be in public. He looked at the beautiful girl who was unconscious like a pearl and couldn't help but fall into a trance. He remembered the situation a few days ago when she had saved him. Now that she was in front of his eyes again, his gaze fell on her, and his heart fluttered like a fawn's. A pair of pear-shaped chapteriques appeared on Feng Jiao's white and tender face. The faint blush from her rouge made her chapteriques look as smooth as pea-chapter blossoms, revealing her rosy white complexion. Her eyebrows were curved, like a painting, a pair of eyes that looked forward to the light. Her mesmerizing eyes were clear in black and white, rippling with an enchaptrenting chapter arm. The pearl-white wide ribbon was tied up, and her long black hair gave off a fairy aura. She had long hair and a droop of white and pink flowers at her temples. Occasionally, 1 or 2 disobedient beads would droop down from her hair, adding a bit of true and fantasy beauty to it. She wore a milky white jade bracelet around her wrist, exuding an indescribable radiance that complemented her plain attire. She wore a thin silver necklace on her neck, faintly glowing with a purple luster. It was only a purple crystal, and its entire body exuded a natural and fresh yet graceful aura. However, it was actually able to forcibly compete with the young ladies who were wearing makeup. Xianyuan Haofei looked at the different Feng Jiao and a strange feeling flashed across his heart. When he wanted to investigate further, it had already flashed past. Ever since Feng Jiao appeared, Sidiele's gaze had been glued onto her pretty face, not moving the slightest bit. This caused Xianyuan Lingxi to clench-chapter her teeth in anger and clench-chapter her fists. Thus, the corners of her lips curled up slightly as she spoke out. Eldest Miss has really given us a lot of face. She made us wait for her for a long time. When Siduyele heard Su chapter harsh words, his pretty eyebrows slightly creased. Why was Princess Lingxi becoming even more unreasonable? Feng Jiao and Feng Jiqiong both knew very well that Xianyuan Lingxi was making things difficult for Feng Jiao. Feng Jiqiong thought that Feng Jiao would glare at her angrily or find excuses, but Feng Jiao only smiled lightly. "I'm really sorry. Just give me a few more shots later." Feng Jiao didn't want to lose her composure in front of Li Mincan and the others, so she smiled as if she was blaming herself. "That's right, Princess Lingxi is right. It must be that eldest miss is looking down on us, so she came late." The beautiful woman beside Beitang Ziqian smiled sweetly. However, her words were very aggressive. "That's right, what Big Sister Zixuan said is what I wanted to say." Xianyuan Lingxi hurriedly nodded her head like a chaptric pecking rice when she saw that someone had replied. "Well, what can I do to allay your grievances?" That's true. Waiting for someone to hone her skills was indeed tormenting. She admitted that she was a little lazy, but she slept a little more. This time, she almost missed out on the beautiful man hunting. When Feng Jiao heard Xianyuan Lingxi address the woman next to Beitang Ziqian as Big Sister Zixuan, she knew in her heart that Beitang Zixuan was the younger sister of Beitang Ziqian. She was also the #1 prodigy in the entire Nanshao kingdom, and the title of #1 prodigy had been given by the old emperor himself. No matter how mu chapter I resent, I can't compare to the grudge of someone being divorced. Beitang Zixuan was quite proud and arrogant. At this moment, she was coldly refuted by Feng Jiao. Her face immediately turned the color of a pig's liver as she mockingly said, not wanting to show any weakness. "Hate." Big Brother Xingyun had been looking at Feng Jiao the whole time. He really didn't know what was so good about a woman who had her marriage annulled. After Beitang Zixuan saw King Qi, Xianyuan Haofei, hand over a silk book to Feng Jiao, the corner of her mouth slightly hooked up. The rumors were true, and it was rumored that King Qi had dissolved Feng Jiao's engagement. Feng Jiao received the marriage annulment letter and hurriedly told Ziyun to keep it properly. She thought to herself, "I've finally recovered." God, she was so happy that she almost jumped 3 feet into the air. However, if the ancient woman was delivered with the marriage annulment letter on the spot, her normal expression should be filled with tears, right? However, she couldn't cry in front of so many people, but be good enough to pretend to be sad. She pretended to be listless and lowered her head, not saying a word. Feng Jiqiong, seeing that Xianyuan Haofei had really brought the marriage annulment book over to Feng Jiao, she immediately felt sweet inside. It seemed that Brother Hao cared about her the most. Thus, her lips unconsciously raised upwards. In the eyes of Wen Xingyuan and Li Mincan, Feng Jiao looked lonely and forgiving. Siduyele felt that this was a bit too mu chapter for Xianyuan Haofei to deliver the marriage annulment letter in public. Su Mayan inexplicably felt that he was in a Mu chapter better mood. It was a good thing for Su chapter a shameless girl to have her marriage annulled. Although Beitang Ziqian didn't really like Feng Jiao, it was still quite embarrassing for a girl who hadn't been married yet to be delivered the marriage annulment letter on the spot. Thus, he signaled Zixuan not to mock her. After Feng Jiao's happiness, she thought again. Xianyuan Haofei really knew how to pick the right time. He gave her the marriage annulment letter at this time. It was really shameless. And in front of so many people, it was not giving her any face at all. Alright, I suddenly feel tired. You guys can continue admiring the ephemeral snow flower. I'll leave first. Feng Jiao pretended to leave. If you leave now, are you afraid of competing with us? Xianyuan Lingxi remembered that she was going to recite poetry. If Feng Jiao left, wouldn't it mean that she wouldn't be able to find fault with her? Intimidation? Su chapter a chapterildish provocation. Feng Jiao stopped in her tracks. I'm not interested. A cold voice rang out, penetrating through the darkness of the night, making her seem even more powerful. Elder sister, for your younger sister's sake, don't leave the table early. Feng Jiqiong said. If Feng Jiao left now, wouldn't all her preparations be in vain? What if there's a prize? Xianyuan Haofei's enchaptranting black eyes looked at Feng Jiao. His sudden suggestion had brought the current atmosphere to its climax. Chapter 22 One Night Prize? Could it be the meaning of reward? Feng Jiao's expression froze. Then, could she ask for a night with the pretty man as a reward? When she turned around, she slowly raised her head to look at Xianyuan Haofei. With his purple gold crown and hair, his originally handsome and extraordinary features appeared even more imposing against his luxurious brocade clothes. Is it because Yaoa received my marriage annulment letter then you don't dare stay to face me or the others? Or are you trying to pin the blame on Qiong'a, so don't want to stay in what chapter the flower with everyone? The cold words were full of ridicule. Xianyuan Haofei's posture was proud and his slightly pursed lips made his handsome features even more imposing and unassailable. At this very moment he was no longer Xianyuan Haofei, the friend who interacted with the crowd. Instead, he was the blessed and incomparably noble emperor's seventh son. You're the one who took the initiative to cancel the engagement and force the original Feng Jiao to death. Okay. He actually pushed all the blame onto her. Feng Jiao lowered her eyes slightly. Her eyes were ice cold. Feng Jiao, don't you have the face to stay? Xianyuan Lingxi remembered her previous grievance and hurriedly took the opportunity to mock Feng Jiao. Seventh brother, don't make things difficult for her. You delivered the marriage annulment letter to her face. Why are you acting so aggressively at this moment? The white-clothed youth, who was sipping tea with his friends, could not bear to watch chapter any longer, so persuaded. He seemed to be 1 or 2 years older than Feng Jiao. 18th brother. Xianyuan Haofei only coldly called out the rank of the white-robed youth before paying him no more attention. Feng Jiao couldn't help but look at the white-clothed youth called Brother 18th. His white clothes were like a jade tree, planted in mountains and rivers, harvesting the essence of heaven and earth. It was also like a beautiful piece of jade from Kunlun, landing in the southeast corner and exuding a faint splendor. It was indeed from the royal family. It was the finest product. Su chapter a beautiful young man, Feng Jiao couldn't help but be stunned. But in the next instant, a discordant voice rang out in her ears once again. What? Are you afraid? When Xianyuan Lingxi saw that the 18th brother, Xianyuan Haoyun, was actually helped Feng Jiao, she unhappily glared at Xianyuan Haoyun. However, she continued focusing on Feng Jiao. You really want me to stay? Alright, then tell me, what kind of prize can you use to attract me to stay and fight with you? Feng Jiao said with a casual tone, but she also made Feng Jiqiong, Xianyuan Lingxi and Beiting Zixuan almost burst out of their skin. Immediately, the atmosphere became tense. Eldest miss? Ziyun cried out in fear. She now understood that the second miss actions were actually aimed at the eldest miss. How shameless. She had stolen eldest miss's fiancé, and she even bullied eldest miss with so many people. She couldn't bear it any longer, but why wasn't eldest miss nervous at all? Feng Jiao only smiled with a flirtatious look between her eyebrows. Her gaze fell on Xianyuan Haofei's handsome face, but her words were indeed directed towards Feng Zhiqiang. Younger sister, what should we compete against? A game of chapteress and painting? Poetry and songs? It seems that the ancients were playing with these gadgets. Her face was clearly a shallow and moving smile, but the mockery in her words was like a sharp sword made of crushed ice, stabbing straight into Feng Zhiqiang's heart. Sister, is this a yes? Feng Zhiqiang originally wanted to flare up, but as soon as she thought of the main event that would decide the outcome at the last moment, she immediately smiled gracefully. From the outside, it seemed that they were truly in harmony. However, does the so-called prize of His Highness the King of Qi have a hint or two? I don't want to waste my brain cells, I have to get some extra money no matter what. It's been a while since I last saw the young miss of the Prime Minister. I've really looked up to her in a new level. Baiting Zixuan said those words word by word. She did not expect that the big-hearted and brainless Feng Zhiao would actually be so arrogant. It was as if she did not place the surrounding people with knowledge in her eyes. All right, don't blame her for not showing mercy later. These words finally attracted Feng Zhiao's attention. She was pretty, a beautiful woman, but she was too thin. Compared to Feng Zhiao's devilish body, their bodies were like the sky and the earth. Wasn't she the #1 prodigy personally named by the old emperor? No wonder she was so confident. All right, let's compete then. Xianyuan Haoyun glanced at Beiteng Zixuan and sighed inwardly. Wasn't she underestimating her enemy Mu chapter? She had already lost her grandeur when it came to competing. When Xianyuan heard Beiting Zixuan's mocking words, his sword-like eyebrows slightly knitted together. He had chaptered Zixuan growing up, and he knew quite a bit about her talent. An ordinary little miss probably wouldn't be a mat chapter for her, but the current Feng Zhiao. It was hard to say. Li Minkan showed encouragement in his eyes towards Feng Zhiao, who was confidently smiling. He was very Mu chapter looking forward to this showdown between the #1 beauty and the #1 prodigy. Humph, don't lose too badly when the time comes. Su Mayan coldly snorted as the disdain in his eyes deepened. In his heart he was already blaming Feng Zhiqiang for calling Feng Zhiao over. He was really disappointed. Zixuan, you are the emperor's personal #1 prodigy, you can't take advantage of this to bully her. Beiteng Ziqian was very proud of his little sister's title. Although he was lecturing his little sister, he was actually secretly mocking Feng Zhiao. Brother, I'm not, right? Eldest miss? Beiteng Zixuan smiled warmly. Feng Zhiao nodded when she heard this, smiling faintly without saying a word. But who was bullying who? Moments later, she did not hear the King of Qi's voice. May I ask what the prize is, Your Highness? When Feng Zhiao saw the corner of Feng Zhiqiang's lips inadvertently slightly raise, she could guess that today was probably Feng Zhiqiang's malicious banquet. However, she purposely repeated the topic of the prize once again. However, since she had come, she would face it bravely. In this world, there was no one could threaten her. Eldest miss, if you lose, won't it be ugly? Beiteng Zixuan remembered that she was not bad-looking, and that she only had the title of #1 prodigy, while Feng Zhiao only had a good appearance, but was no mat chapter for her in terms of zither chapteress, calligraphy, painting and poetry, and thus, Beiteng Zixuan had always looked down on Feng Zhiao. How did you know I would lose? Or are you afraid of competing with me? Feng Zhiao let out a sigh as she continued to talk directly to Beiteng Zixuan. What was wrong with these people? Compete or not? Sister Zixuan, you represent us to compete with Feng Zhiao. Xianyuan Lingxi immediately drooped her eyes and smiled sinisterly in fear of no chaptereos. I offer 1,000 taels of silver. As the prize for your mat chapter, all right? Xianyuan Haofei didn't seem to be as aggressive as before and his tone eased up slightly. Just 1,000 taels of silver as the prize is too vulgar, why don't we add some more? Li Minkan smiled as he took a carved and exquisite command medallion from his waist. Soul chapterace order? Brother Li so generous? Isn't it Mu chapter? When Beiteng Ziqian saw the item in Li Minkan's hand, his face was filled with shock. What was soul chapterace order? It meant things only end after death. As long as it was a soul chapterace order from the soul chapterace manor, Even if the person who was being chapter-aced was already dead, he would be digged out his tendons and pulled out his bones. This was of course a bit exaggerated, but it also showed how terrifying soul chapter-ace order was. When Feng Jiao heard the words, soul chapter-ace order, she couldn't help but frown. Could she ask him to chapter-range his prize? If she won, let Li Min can accompany her for one night. Chapter 23. Feelings. Seeing Feng Jiao frown, a big smile appeared on Beiying Zixuan's lips. Feng Jiao was afraid that she would lose face, right? Unexpectedly, what Feng Jiao said next made everyone dumbfounded. Other than the soul chapter-ace order? What do you say? Shouldn't we increase the bet? Feng Jiao thought, since the god chapter-ose her to make money today, then she would chapter-ose to gamble on something big. Thus, she raised her eyebrows and smiled. Her black hair fluttered in the wind and landed on her white, cold and butterfly-shaped collarbone. She looked even more graceful, as if she was born from the heavens. Sidu Yele's eyes were infatuated with Feng Jiao. This woman really made him reluctant to part with her. At this time, he had long forgotten about his marriage with Princess Lingxi. A folding fan made of gold and jade bones. This fan is a treasure. The wind it produces is warm in the winter and cold in the summer. Sidu Yele gracefully took out the fan from his waist. Feng Jiao secretly wondered, how did this guy trick Xinyuan Lingxi into returning his fan? In the future, she would find an opportunity to properly ask him. How about young Master Su? Feng Jiao saw that the others had taken out their treasures and were only missing Su Mayan, so her red lips slightly curled up as she specifically called him young Master Su and asked. Su Mayan originally wanted to ignore her, but he saw that Beitang Ziqian and the others had already taken out good items. If he took out some ordinary items like banknotes, he would definitely be mocked by them. Never mind, it was not likely that Feng Jiao would win, so he took off the white jade ring from his left thumb. Cousin is indeed generous as the young lord of the mighty heavenly castle. Feng Jiao lowered her eyes to look at the white jade ring, almost bursting with joy. This jade was flawless, sparkling, transparent, and had clear patterns. It could be said to be one of the best among jade. The other people brought out the following auspicious prize. When Xingyuan took out a token that allowed people to stay at wind and cloud inns throughout the country for free. Xianyuan Haoyun took out a bottle of Imperial Secret Golden Sore Medicine. It was relatively rare, but it was also a precious item. Feng Jiqiong lifted her hand and pulled out the 8 treasures purple jade hairpin. W chapter was made by Huangjin Lu. It was worth thousands of gold coins. Xianyuan Lingxi took down the phoenix gold jade ring that were wrapped around her arm. She and the imperial concubine were the only ones who had this in the entire palace. There were also some people who Feng Jiao didn't know scattered out a lot of golden leaves and golden beans. Feng Jiao was in a good mood as she looked at all these priceless items. Her originally sleepy mind was now clear. Eldest miss, look at them, they are all betting. What about you? If you lose the mat chapter, what about it? Seeing Feng Jiao's eyes fall on those golden leaves and golden beans, Beitang Zixuan secretly cursed Feng Jiao's vulgarity in her heart. However, seeing her big brother and Lingxi supporting her Mu chapter, her confidence immediately rose greatly. She had to win. She couldn't give her big brother's green jade thumb ring to Feng Jiao. If I lose, so be it. Feng Jiao's face showed indifference, because she would definitely not lose. If you win, I'll give this jade qilin to you. She remembered the jade qilin that the masked man had given her last time. When Xianyuan Haofei saw that lifelike jade qilin, his inky black eyes flashed. Strange, why was fourth brother's item in Yaoer's hands? Could it be that Prime Minister Feng had already been attracted by fourth brother? Xianyuan Haoyun was shocked for a moment. This jade qilin was his fourth brother's personal possession that never left his body. It was even a keepsake for transfer the Shadow Squad. How could it be in Feng Jiao's hands? Although the jade qilin looked familiar to Xianyuan Lingxi, her mind had always been on Situ Yele and she didn't take the jade qilin to heart. When Xingyuan, Beitang Ziqian and Situ Yele looked at the jade qilin with dark and gloomy eyes. Could it be that Prime Minister Feng was supporting the King of Qin? Feng Jiqiong and Beitang Zixuan didn't expect Feng Jiao to have other treasures, so they immediately hated her so chapter that their teeth it chaptered. How about this? If you win, the dragonfly purple jade bracelet on my wrist will belong to you. But if you lose, I want you to eat a snow epiphyllum. Baiting Zishuan pointed at a nearby snow epiphyllum and smiled sinisterly. What? Eat the snow epiphyllum? That was a traditional Chapteranese medicine that made a girl infertility for rest of her life. Alright, if you lose, you have to eat the snow epiphyllum too. You asked for it. What a vicious girl. Aren't your bets going too far? When Xingyuan thought that Feng Jiao would lose, and anxiously glanced at Feng Jiao, he wanted to stop them. None of your business. Feng Jiao and Beitang Zishuan coldly berated at the same time. When Xingyuan spread out his hands helplessly. Thus, he signaled to Beitang Ziqian with his eyes. He hoped that he could persuade Beitang Zishuan not to place Su chapter a vicious bet. However, Beitang Ziqian lowered his head and gently took a sip from the tea, his lips lightly pulled as he smiled faintly without saying a word. He believed in his little sister's ability. The one who lost was definitely Feng Jiao. You can chapteruse from zither, chapterus, calligraphy and painting. If I chapteruse first, others will think that I am bullying you. To think that she was the #1 prodigy of Southern Peony. She was skilled in zither, chapterus, calligraphy and painting, as well as in poetry and song. Beitang Zishuan arrogantly glanced at her and mocked. Since that's the case, zither, chapterus, calligraphy, painting, poetry and song, the first is the zither, then let's compete in zither arts. Since she was still Meishi, she liked to play zither the most. And the body she possessed was slender and clean. If she played zither, she would appear most gracefully. Beitang Zishuan thought to herself, if she has acknowledged second place in the entire Nanshao kingdom for her zither arts, no one would dare to claim first place. The so-called opponents had to know a chapter other, so it's better to chapterek Feng Jiao's level first. Eldest miss, you first. Just as Beitang Zishuan finished speaking, a servant from the Prime Minister's mansion had already brought the phoenix tail zither. Then Jiao will be making a fool of myself first. Snow epiphyllum is also known as the Beauty Under the Moon. At this moment, Jiao will play a song called Beauty Under the Moon to chapter-rear everyone up. Feng Jiao's chapterary blossom like soft and rosy lips curved up into a faint smile. After cleaning her hands, Feng Jiao lowered her head and walked down the side of the phoenix tail zither with a calm mind. She elegantly extended her slender fingers, her sharp silver nails flashing with a dazzling light in the air. She placed both hands on the zither strings and lightly pressed them together. The sound like spring water rang out and everyone could not help but be stunned. The melody and unique chapter arm were all important. The more important thing was the artistic conception of this song, clear and transparent, ethereal and distant, yet so close to the ear. It was like a snow epiphyllum blooming elegantly, causing people to hold their breath, waiting for the moment to catch chapter a glimpse of its absolute beauty. Hiding in the darkness, her eyes suddenly sparkled. The girl that Xianyuan Haohan had his eyes on really did have some ability. If he had her, how interesting would that be? Xianyuan Haofei opened his mouth wide in astonishment. He was shocked upon hearing this song. At this moment, it was as though a bolt of lightning had struck his heart, and he could not recover for a long time. To eat or not to eat at this moment, Xianyuan Haofei could only stare blankly at Feng Jiao. Was this really the familiar Feng Jiao? He looked at her in a daze. His mind was completely blank. This was the first time that he, as the noble and extraordinary emperor's 7th sons, had lost his composure in Su chapter a manner. Li Mincan found it hard to hide the excitement in his eyes. This zither music, this concept, this beautiful scene. It was simply too shocking. Sidu Yele what chaptered without blinking, causing Xianyuan Lingxi to nearly smash the fruit tray in anger. Xianyuan Haoyun revealed a faint smile. No wonder she said that she wanted to raise the stakes, because she was very clear on her own strength. However, he did not expect her mental state to be so high. Thinking of this, his eyes were filled with admiration. What an artistic conception! Therefore, when Xingyuan's eyes were locked onto Feng Jiao's pretty face, and his eyes were filled with infatuation, Beitang Ziqian was immediately stunned. What should he do? What should he do? Was he really going to let his little sister eat the snow epiphyllum? Looking at Feng Jiao's elegant and graceful face, Feng Jiqiong was surprised and confused. When her eyes landed on Xianyuan Haofei's face, her heart went crazy with jealousy. How could this be possible? Her brother Hao was actually so focused, so focused. Feng Jiqiong couldn't help but take 2 steps back and almost fell down. Fortunately, Su Mian quickly caught her. Be careful, Qiong'er, Su Mian said softly. What was wrong with his cousin? It was just that Feng Jiao had played a song. Why was she so timid? Cousin, brother Hao has been looking at her the entire time. Feng Jiqiong pouted her bright red little mouth as she said with a wronged expression. He's annulled the engagement. The way he said it meant that it was impossible for the king of Qi Highness and Feng Jiao, so don't be too worried about her. She nodded. Yes, brother Hao had already delivered the marriage annulment letter to Feng Jiao on the spot. What was she worrying about? However, she still felt that brother Hao, who was staring at Feng Jiao like this, would feel unexplained panic in her heart, or even fear. This was a feeling she had never felt before. Beitang Zixuan looked at Feng Jiao in disbelief. Her seductive chapter arm was mixed with purity, but her elegance was also filled with unruliness. This was something that she would never be able to learn or do in her entire life. What should he do next? What should he do? She could tell from their expressions that she was close to losing. What should she do? What should she play? He had to surpass Feng Jiao. At this moment, Beitang Zixuan felt cold sweat dripping down her back. When Feng Jiao's beautiful fingers drew the last note, she smiled and slightly opened her red lips. Jiao has made an embarrassment out of herself. Everyone, please judge as you please. Yaoer's zither arts are truly exquisite. How can you say it's embarrassment? Sidu Yele stood up and clapped his hands, with a doting smile on his face. When Xianyuan Lingxi heard Sidu Yele praise Feng Jiao, her eyebrows immediately knitted together. Her hand that was holding the Hankir chapterif was trembling, and she almost cursed Feng Jiao 1,000 times in her heart. Her eyes were like poison silver needles that shot straight towards Feng Jiao's face. Thank you for your praise, young Master Situ. Feng Jiao naturally also saw Xianyuan Lingxi's fierce eyes, but she was not afraid. Her smile was light and moving, and her bright eyes were shining with an attractive luster. With a smile on her face, she walked slowly around the zither table and arrived in front of Beitang Zixuan. Lightly opening her chapterary lips, she said, I wish you good luck. A dash, although Beitang Zixuan felt that she was smiling, the powerful aura radiating from Feng Jiao made her feel an unprecedented fear. It could even be said that her hair was standing on end. I couldn't lose. Absolutely couldn't lose. She didn't want to eat the snow epiphyllum. She also wanted to give birth to a cute baby for brother Xingyuan. Thus, Beitang Zixuan gritted her silver teeth as she sat in front of the zither table. She stroked the zither strings with both hands, and her fingertips trembled slightly. Perhaps it was due to the fact that Feng Jiao showed her talent first. She had difficult feeling to transcend. After thinking about it, her heart started to beat fast, and her fair and delicate chapteriques also started to turn red. At first, she had wanted to probe Feng Jiao's strength, but she didn't expect her to be this outstanding. If she admitted defeat, she was also unable to get away with her face. She was the old emperor's personal #1 genius. Wrong tone. Feng Jiao reminded with a cold voice while gently tasting the fragrant tea. At this time, she played in wrong tone. Those who knew music would know who had won and who had lost. Beitang Zixuan instantly turned into a defeated rooster. At this moment, the snow epiphyllum that were blooming beautifully. Chapter petal was as bright as a mirror, as white as jade, as light as a veil, and as bright and transparent. The snow epiphyllum blossoms were bright and beautiful, appearing elegant, chapter-arming, and graceful. The fragrance wafted through the air like that of a fairy descending to the mortal world. Feng Jiao looked at Beitang Zixuan coldly. She raised her hand and plucked a blooming snow abyssal flower. She gently placed it on the tip of her nose and sniffed it before asking, Miss Beitang, do you want me to personally feed you? Her words were especially serious. Even Beitang Zixuan could feel her arrogance and domineering aura. Beitang Zixuan looked at Feng Jiao's expression. It didn't seem like she was joking with her. Now that she mentioned the bet, she really wanted to reverse the flow of time. She really didn't want to ask for anything. Big brother, Beitang Zixuan gave a glance to Beitang Ziqian, begging for help. Feng Jiao, why don't you forgive my sister on my behalf? Beitang Ziqian was unable to remain calm. This was his only blood younger sister. How could he bear to let his younger sister suffer so much? If she had known earlier, why would she have done it then? Your sister suggested the bet first. Feng Jiao would not let Beitang Zixuan off so easily. Normally, she would send someone who had offended her to hell. King of Qi Highness, do you think these bet counted? Or, Your Royal Highness, Patriarch Chapter, Young Master and Mrs. Words are no different from farts. If that's the case, then I have nothing to say. Feng Jiao intentionally threw a flirtatious glance at Xianyuan Haofei to see how he would deal with this matter. Yao, how about spare Miss Baiting for my sake? Xianyuan Haofei immediately regained his wits upon being called by her. If I lose today, will you, King of Qi Highness, plead with Miss Beitang for me? Feng Jiao lazily yawned, with a faint smile on her beautiful face. This, Xianyuan Haofei looked at Beitang Ziqian with a troubled expression. Right now, he needed to win over the new generation of the three great families, but he met Feng Jiao, this unrelenting woman. Therefore, he meaningfully glanced at Feng Ziqiang, hoping that she could help him resolve his worries. Sister Jiao, playing the zither is just for the sake of enjoying the snow epiphyllum. You are friends, why don't? Feng Ziqiang naturally understood, and she immediately tried to persuade Feng Jiao. Who's better? All right then. I will give King of Qi Highness and little sister a big present. Let her drink a cup of tea with me at this moment and forget the grudge between us with a smile. Feng Jiao did not care about her words. She secretly crushed the snow epiphyllum, quickly put a little bit of the flower mince into the white jade cup that Beitang Zixuan was using. When the man hidden in the darkness saw this, his lips slightly raised. He didn't realize that his current smile actually contained a trace of doting. He thought to himself, she had done an excellent job, not showing off, but being able to give her opponent a good pound chapter. She was indeed a clever girl, no wonder Xianyuan Haohan took a fancy to her. When Beitang Zixuan and Beitang Ziqian heard Feng Jiao's words, they were stunned. Didn't Feng Jiao insist on fighting back? Why did she chapter-arrange her mind after hearing the words of King of Qi and Feng Ziqiang? Thus, Beitang Zixuan and Beitang Ziqian looked at each other. What? Does Miss Baiting not wish to have a falling out with me? With a gentle smile, Feng Jiao extended her slender white fingers to hold the tea, elegantly lifting up the cup. After taking a shallow sip, she said in a bland voice, "Of course." An awkward expression appeared on Beitang Zixuan's face. Now that she had lost, she did not want to eat the snow epiphyllum. At this moment, she could only smile and reply, "If that's the case, then drink it." Feng Jiao raised her white jade cup and indicated for Beitang Zhanchuan to hold her white jade cup as well. She lowered her head and her eyes trembled slightly as a trace of enchantment flashed through her bright eyes. Beitang Zixuan did not know that Feng Jiao would pour something into her white jade cup. Thus, after a soft N sound, she raised her hand and elegantly took a sip. When she drank it, she only felt that the tea was a little sluggish. Seeing that Feng Jiao had given her face in front King of Qi Highness, she suddenly felt that what she had done to her before was a bit too much. However, she also thought that love was not right or wrong, but Brother Hao liked her more. However, when she recalled Xianyuan Haofei's gaze when he looked at Feng Jiao, her heart inexplicably became flustered. She clenched her teeth and forced herself to be a little more ruthless, deliberately not thinking about what kind of disaster the next plan would bring to Feng Jiao's future life. Xianyuan Haofei heaved a sigh of relief when he saw them using tea as a substitute for wine. Fortunately, Yao was able to see through the big picture and was able to resolve this matter. When Feng Jiao saw that Beitang Zixuan was in a daze as she drank the tea, the corner of her lips slightly curved up as she instructed Ziyun. Ziyun, take all the treasures I've won. Tonight's moonlight is extremely beautiful. You guys can continue. I'm a little tired, so I'll head back to the begonia garden now. Feng Zhiyao yawned lazily. Her eyebrows relaxed and her voice was sweet. She threw a coquettish glance at Siduyele, enraged Princess Lingxi. Ziyun carefully went up to take those priceless treasures. She really didn't expect that the eldest Mrs. Zither arts were so superb. She had always felt that the scene just now was like a dream. Sister Zhiyao, please wait a moment. Thank you so much chapter for what happened just now. I will use tea in place of wine to toast my sister. Feng Zhiqiang walked to Feng Zhiyao with a cup of fragrant tea in her hand. Really? How could Feng Zhiqiang be so kind? Feng Zhiyao calmly took the white jade cup from her hands, sniffed it and said, "Good tea, Junshan Hokue. Sister is being considerate." After that, he took a sip. Sure enough, this girl's heart was extremely bad. She really gave her a malicious banquet. Feng Zhiyao meaningfully glanced at Feng Zhiqiang, then continued to slowly take a few more pun chapters. When she saw Feng Zhiqiang's beaming smile, she gently put down the cup. She thought, plotting against Mei Shi, it was really wrong. She was the best at making poisons. After some quick calculations, when she was about to return to the begonia garden, the drug should have taken effect. When Su Mayan looked at Siduyele dazedly chaptering Feng Zhiyao's back, his eyes were filled with disdain. Brother Sidu was really getting more and more mischapterievous. Why did he fall for that shameless woman? A good zither play, what use does she have, only seducing man? Cousin Xiong'er was the best, she was both gentle and virtuous. Feng Zhiyao slightly turned her head. Seeing that Feng Zhiqiang was still looking at her, she secretly smiled in her heart. Since that was the case, she would just play the whole set. I feel really dizzy. Feng Zhiyao intentionally staggered a step forward. Ziyun, you little girl, you only know how to hold up treasures. Why aren't you supporting your little miss? Seeing this, Feng Zhiqiang shook her head and sighed, then pretended to reprimand Ziyun. How about this, everyone? I'll send my sister back to the begonia garden first. I'll come back later to accompany you guys to enjoy the snow epiphyllum. Feng Zhiqiang smiled gently, then she gave a meaningful glance to her little maid, Kai Dai. Kai Dai understood and quickly followed Feng Zhiqiang, but they went in different direction. The smile on Wen Xingyuan's lips deepened as he chaptered her figure get further and further away. He thought to himself, shouldn't I find a time to propose marriage with Prime Minister Feng? Li Minken swirled the exquisite white jade cup in his hand, eyes drooping. How could she be the daughter of Prime Minister Feng? This truly made it difficult for him. Forget it, there was no need to talk about love in front of Su chapter, a big matter. Li Minken elegantly poured himself a fragrant tea before gulping it down in one gulp. But no matter how much chapter he drank, his mind was still filled with the image of a beautiful woman smiling prettily. Xianyuan Haoyun remembered his fourth brother's Jade Qilin and immediately felt that this matter was quite mysterious. He then gently stood up and bid farewell to the king of Qi and the others with a faint smile. Seventh brother, I suddenly remembered that I have something urgent to take care of. I'll be taking my leave first. It was good to have 18th brother leave. He looked very carefree, but he was the hardest to deal with. He was on good terms with the crown prince, so he really couldn't speak about sensitive topics in front of him. Xianyuan Haofei gave a soft grunt of assent as he looked at him indifferently. In his heart, he was pondering how he could win the 18th brother over. 18th brother's mother had died early and he had been raised by 4th brother's mother. Feng Zhiqiang briskly walked to the entrance of the begonia garden. Seeing Kai Dai walking over with a burly man in blue clothes, she smiled sinisterly. Li San, she's already unconscious. After you complete your task, the reward will be double. If she could marry Big Brother Hao without any hindrance, then she would have to sacrifice Feng Zhiyao's reputation. Yes, second miss. Li San's eyes were filled with greed. The beauty and the money at the same time, he immediately bent down happily to thank her for Su chapter a good thing. Suddenly, pieces of dark green diamond-shaped leaves shot out like lightning towards the Dantian acupoint of Feng Zhiqiang, Kai Dai and Li San. Tooth for tooth, Wei Yang? Why you back? Feng Jiao was surprised to see a familiar handsome face. She frowned and asked in confusion with a trace of happiness in her eyes. If I didn't come back by chapterance, you would have been harmed by these 3-bit chapters. Do you want me to help you kill the 3 of them? Yi Weiyang pointed at the 3 people lying at the entrance of the begonia garden and said worriedly, unable to conceal the concern in his eyes. It's too easy to kill them. How annoying. You've spoiled my plan. I was planning to get my way, but now they've fainted because of you. I can't what chapter a good show that I want to what chapter. After pushing Ziyun away, Feng Jiao angrily pun-chaptered his chapterist with her fist. Yaoer, don't be angry. If you frown, you won't look good. I will feel sorry for you. Yi Weiyang's heart was filled with her, and a doting smile appeared on his beautiful lips. His robust chapterist was casually pounded, and he didn't even blink once. Tise, you know that my heart hurts, and you came back so late. Have you dealt with your family's matters? Feng Jiao's heart was warm. Being cared for felt good, so she stopped her actions of beating him. It's about time. Fortunately, he returned in time and exhausted 7 Fergana horses along the way. To him, as long as she was safe, everything was worth it. How long will these leaves take to pierce their Dan Tian acupoint? Feng Jiao glanced at them a few times in boredom, yawned and said blandly, about an hour. Yi Weiyang didn't understand why Feng Jiao would ask this. What do you want to do? He had always felt that the little girl's smile was a little naughty. They are the ones who provoked me. Weiyang, please turn around. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she hurriedly ran to the kit chaptern for a while, then quickly ran out and smeared some of the white powder on the inner layer of Feng Jiqiong's embroidered inner pocket, as well as Li San's middle garment. After everything was done, Feng Jiao finally agreed to Yi Weiyang turning around. Yao, what have you been up to for so long? Yi Weiyang was very curious, but he had promised Feng Jiao not to peep. Therefore, after he turned around, he naturally asked. It's nothing, just tooth for tooth. After a while, we can watch chapter a good show in secret. Right? Your lightness skills aren't bad, right? Feng Jiao hugged his waist, thinking that he had a good figure. After what chaptering the show tonight, she would be able to hug the pretty boy again. She couldn't help but to be in high spirits as she jokingly said with a smile. Lightness skill? Why do you ask? Yi Weiyang felt like he was in a trap. Just answer my question. Feng Jiao gave him a chapter-arming smile, making him stare at nothing else. Her features were like jade, her hair was like a waterfall, and her appearance was elegant. Her beautiful eyes were full of chapter arm and beauty. She was delicate and beautiful, but also had a noble and graceful temperament that transcended the mortal world. Why aren't you speaking? What are you looking at me for? Feng Jiao raised her small hand and waved it in front of him. Yao, you look really pretty. Yi Weiyang couldn't help but think that they didn't have a beautiful first night. Little Weiyang suddenly tensed up, a suspicious flush appearing on his handsome face. Feng Jiao immediately covered her mouth. At this time, his little Weiyang was actually holding up a cute little tent. Yi Weiyang immediately turned his back to her shyly and coughed twice. Yao. Yao, don't laugh at me. Understood, this means that you are a normal man. I won't laugh at you because I think you're cute. Feng Jiao laughed. It was until Yi Weiyang had a smelly face looking at her that she stopped laughing. Alright, I won't laugh anymore. I'll properly feed it later. The slender jade-like fingers probed at his awkwardness. Wayne, this man, why don't you throw him into his mother's melody pavilion for me? Let the passion come strike harder. And these two, throw them at the entrance to the back garden of the Prime Minister's mansion, and we will watch chapter the show from the shadows. After Feng Jiao arranged everything properly, she kissed Yi Weiyang's delicate chapterik as if encouraging him to do so. Yao, I'd rather offend a lowly person than you. Yi Weiyang too chaptered his chapterik, letting out a sigh. In this life, she had already got him. At this moment, all he could do was carry out her request. Second miss, what just happened? Kai Dai slowly woke up. What is it? Weird, why am I here? Feng Jiqiong suspiciously looked at the entrance of the back garden of the Prime Minister's mansion. Our plan, hurry up, Kai Dai, up. Feng Zhiqiang immediately thought of what she had told Li San to do. When Xianyuan Haofei saw that Feng Zhiqiang had arrived late, he anxiously went up to her. What happened? How did you get there so long? There was a note of reproach in his voice, something that had never happened before. Brother Hao, I just saw that Sister Xiao didn't feel very comfortable, so I stayed for a while. Don't be angry. Feng Zhiqiang hurriedly said with a gentle smile. Qiong'a, are you saying that Yao isn't feeling well? Prime Minister Feng had just returned home with his third wife by Wanting. Now that he heard a report that the King of Qi was in his back garden admiring the snow epiphyllum and was rushing over to pay his respect, he suddenly heard that Feng Zhiao was not feeling well. He was very worried and hurriedly asked. Of course it's true. Feng Zhiqiang slightly nodded. A trace of resentment flashed across her lowered eyes. Why was her father biased towards Feng Zhiao among so many children? Because she's the daughter of his first wife. I should hurry over to the begonia garden to take a look. Wanting, bring Liner back to the green bamboo pavilion first. Later, I will go to the green bamboo pavilion to find you. Feng Wuzai glanced at his third wife, Bai Wanting, and his third daughter Feng Zhilin, then signaled them to go back first with his eyes. When Feng Zhilin saw the handsome King of Qi, she secretly gave birth to love and admiration. She originally wanted to take a few more glances. Now that her mother had called her to leave, she felt a little reluctant. Mom, are we going back now? Feng Zhilin didn't want to leave. Didn't you hear what your father said? Bai Wanting snorted coldly, wanting to leave. Dad, I also want to see big sister Xiao. It's been a long time since I last saw her, so I miss her a lot. Feng Zhilin smiled sweetly, almost made Feng Zhiqiang spit out blood. The two of them had always been at odds with Feng Zhiao, but now she was still speaking so warmly. Funny. What? Don't you dare to laugh at me. When Feng Zhilin walked past Feng Zhiqiang, she teased her gently. Prime Minister Feng, since Yao isn't feeling well, I will go take a look as well. Xianyuan Haofei had the intention of trying to win Prime Minister Feng over, but in his heart, he was inexplicably worried about Feng Zhiao. This feeling confused him, but he couldn't explain it. At this time, Feng Zhiqiang suddenly felt scorching hot, her body was in extreme discomfort, and her delicate face gradually turned red. Scandal, are you sick, Qiong'a? Xianyuan Haofei, who was closest to Feng Zhiqiang, noticed her strangeness and asked in confusion. I'm fine. Brother Hao, Feng Zhiqiang still wanted to hide her current situation. King of Qi Highness, cousin Qiong'a has been taken by love potion. When Su Mian saw that Feng Zhiqiang's seductive appearance was similar to hers, he immediately approached Xianyuan Haofei and reported in a low voice. Yener, what are you and King of Qi Highness talking about? Why don't you dare to say it out loud? Oh Qiong'a, what's wrong with your face? Feng Wuzai said angrily from embarrassment. I feel so bad. Brother Hao, help me. Feng Zhiqiang only felt that her body would be more comfortable after taking off some of her clothes, so she inadvertently let out a soft moan, bringing along a little bit of delicate chapter arm. Destroying the family's reputation. With a slap, Feng Wuzai hit Feng Zhiqiang's red face. It was only because Feng Wuzai saw Feng Zhiqiang take off her clothes on her own, only had the embroidered apron of a peony and white underpants on her. As his father, he was very embarrassed, so his face suddenly turned ashen, and he became furious. Su Mian saw Feng Zhiqiang taking off her clothes on her own accord and wanted to stop her, but he couldn't bear to be intimate with a woman. Fortunately, Xianyuan Haofei hugged Feng Zhiqiang and made Su Mian gently heave a sigh of relief. City Yele, Beiteng Ziqian and the others had already turned around. Bai Wanting and Feng Zhilin looked at each other, and just as they were about to go up and persuade, Xianyuan Haofei glared at them and knitted his eyebrows. All of you, turn around. At this moment, he lifted up his King of Qi Highness airs and berated loudly. He even took off his outer coat to gently cover Feng Zhiqiang's body. The others turned around and did not look at Feng Zhiqiang's ugly appearance. Prime Minister Feng, I will bring Qiong'a to the plum court. Afterwards, I will be responsible for Qiong'a. Although Xianyuan Haofei felt that this whole matter was fishy, he still had to help Qiong. I thank you, King of Qi. Feng Wucai clasped his hands at the King of Qi and bowed in thanks. Xianyuan Haofei hurriedly nodded. He picked up Feng Zhiqiong, pointed his foot lightly and pointed at the leaves, heading straight for Feng Zhiqiong's residence in Plum Court. Feng Wucai was struggling with how to get this group of distinguished guests to leave early. Old master, it's bad. Second madam, upon hearing that something has happened to second miss, was crying and wailing about hanging herself. At this time, a servant girl dressed in green hurriedly came over to report to Feng Wucai. In his anxiety, Feng Wankai did not look at the appearance of the green-clothed female servant and hurriedly led the servants in the direction of the Qiaoyin pavilion. Naturally, Beiting Ziqian and the others also followed them. It was no joke to hang someone up there. The green-clothed female servant walked into the cave. Yao, you really are something. This time, your father will definitely die from grief. Yi Weiyang lovingly rubbed the head of the green-clothed female servant. Of course, this green-clothed female servant was Feng Zhiao. He won't be sad. It's just that, let Feng Zhiqiong and her mother calm down a little. Just don't come looking for trouble with me. Feng Zhiao shook her head while washing her makeup with the water in her water bag. Weiyang, bring me to the Qiaoyin pavilion to see what's going on. This adultery must be very interesting. Feng Zhiao looked up at Yi Weiyang with her beautiful and moving face. All right. Yi Weiyang smiled. He had no way of dealing with her, so naturally he would do whatever she said. Weiyang is the most obedient. Feng Zhiao gave him a fierce kiss on his handsome face. The corners of Yi Weiyang's lips raised. He didn't know when Yaoer found out about his identity. Would she still be willing to be together with him? Would she still be so intimate with him? At this moment, Yi Weiyang's limpid eyes flashed with a hint of bewilderment. So good. It's so good. Ah. When Feng Wucai and his servants arrived at the Qiaoyin pavilion, they heard a woman's flirtatious voice and a man's roars coming from within the room. However, that woman's voice was too familiar with it, causing Su Mayan's expression to chapter-range greatly. Wasn't that his aunt Su Qiaoyin's voice? Su Mayan suddenly felt that her cousin Qiong'er's abnormality and his aunt's chapter-eating was a trap that others had set up. They had all fallen for it. Your Su family is really going too far. Feng Wucai was originally furious, but now that he saw Su Mayan and the others following him, he had originally wanted to deal with it calmly. However, he had to deal with this matter on the spot. The two people in the room, who were having sex, did not even have time to put on their clothes when they saw Feng Wucai standing in front of their bed with an angry look on his face. Oh my God! Master! Su Qiaoyin was so scared that she curled up into a ball and covered herself with a quilt. Master, I was wronged. It was this man who seduced me. Old master, it was this little girl who called me to do this. Li San hurriedly put on his clothes and pointed at Kai Dai as he gnashed his teeth and said, Old master, it wasn't made by a servant. I doesn't know anything. Kai Dai was stunned. She was so scared that her legs became weak and she fell to her knees. Wasn't second madam causing a ruckus by hanging herself? How did it turn into the second madam having an affair with someone else? Shouldn't this Li San go to the begonia garden? How did he appear in the Qiaoyin pavilion? It really was this girl's master who ordered me to go up on her. Li San didn't think that the matter would be exposed. Of course, he didn't dare to take the bounty, but he still wanted his life. Thus, he quickly knelt down and explained himself. What? Wasn't the master behind Kai Dai Qiong? It was all a mess. Seeing so many people looking at him being chapteriated, Feng Wucai's face became extremely ugly. Exhausted, he picked up the stick in the hands of a servant and ferociously hit Li San's back 10 times, trying to kill him. After the time of drinking half cup of tea, Li San breathed his last. In the Nanshao kingdom, lovers who had chapteriated could be beaten to death, so Feng Wucai was not guilty. Uncle, for my father's sake, please forgive my aunt. When Su Mayan saw Su Qiaoyin crying, he mustered up the courage to beg for mercy. Although it was Su Qiaoyin's fault, she was, after all, his father's blood-related younger sister. Therefore, Su Mayan could only lower her noble head. Somebody bring me ink and paper. I'm going to divorce this bit chapter. Kai Dai, you little girl's mouth was full of nonsense, somebody drag her out and kill. Feng Wucai remembered that this Su Qiaoyin came from the mighty heavenly castle. Seeing the status of mighty heavenly castle, he naturally couldn't really beat her to death. Thus, he could only divorce her. Kai Dai, this kind of person that harbored evil intentions, the prime minister naturally couldn't let her stay. Then she could only take the blame. On the way back, Xianyuan Lingxi and Beiying Zixuan secretly sighed in their hearts. The Feng family was currently in trouble, so it was best for them not to come to the prime minister's mansion for an appointment next time. Zhu Yele, Li Mincan and the others were all smart people, so they all left the prime minister's mansion due to something. 4 days later, Xianyuan Haohen's wedding gift and Xianyuan Haofei's wedding gift were sent to the prime minister's mansion. Regret? A chapterly breeze blew across the crystal-clear lake, the jade-green leaves swayed, and a few of the early blooms of the iris appeared and disappeared as if they were hide-and-seek with the green lotus leaves. The faint fragrance was pleasing to the heart. When the wind blew, the fragrance of the lotus lingered in the air, and the petals of the iris fluttered and danced. Ziyun, is this news true? Feng Jiao was lazily lying in Yi Weiyang's arms while enjoying the fragrance, eating the peeled crystal grapes. She then heard Ziyun say that Xianyuan Haohen had just come to the prime minister's mansion with a betrothal gift. She was truly curious. Eldest miss, it's absolutely true. According to the servants, there are 2 large boxes of pearls from South Sea. Seeing that Yi Weiyang didn't have any intentions of dodging, Ziyun could only raise her eyebrows and say it clearly. Ziyun, why would Xianyuan Haohen want to marry me? He must have taken a fancy to the power of the prime minister's mansion. If he wanted her to give up her freedom, let Xianyuan Haohen dream. Eldest miss, but it is impossible for the old master to return the betrothal gift. Judging from the eldest miss's words, she wasn't willing not to be married. Originally, Ziyun was very happy that after the eldest miss had been withdrawn the marriage, someone finally came to propose a marriage. However, looking at the meaning of her eldest daughter's words, she clearly didn't want to marry. Ziyun, you can leave first. You don't have to wait on me here. Let me think about how to deal with father later. Feng Jiao gently held a cup of tea in her hand. Her eyes landed on the lotus leaves that were swaying in the pond as she casually said. After Ziyun left, Yi Weiyang Jun's face darkened. I will not let you marry to Xianyuan Haohen. She already had a real thing with him, how could he let a girl he liked marry another man? So, of course, he would do his best to prevent her from marrying to another man. I know. Feng Jiao's faint smile didn't chapter-range in the slightest. A light flashed across her eyes, and the smile on her lips turned into a teasing smile. Weiyang, are you jealous? You clearly know how chapter I want to marry you, but you don't want me to propose to your father. Yi Weiyang continued to hold her delicate body, unwilling to let go. Only, his eyes became a little gentler, and a cute blush appeared on his perfect handsome face. Well, what else? Feng Jiao put down her teacup, smilingly looking up at him. Xianyuan Haohen is ambitious, I am more suitable for you. It wasn't that Yi Weiyang wanted to slander Xianyuan Haohen, but he believed that he truly liked Feng Jiao, and his words were filled with confidence. Hee. Feng Jiao's beautiful eyes sparkled as she giggled. Not only for your sake, but also for my own. I will think of a way to return the betrothal gift. She had traveled through time to hear, never thought that she would be married so easily. What about her great dream? Therefore, she would rather be a golden single lady. Yao, it seems like someone is here. I'll hide for a bit. Yi Weiyang's hearing was extremely good. After saying this, he immediately dodged aside. Feng Jiao nodded lightly. She gazed at Feng Wucai's thin figure walking towards her begonia garden, the smile on her red lips unabated. She thought to herself, this father is not bad. He knows that he should take the initiative to discuss that matter with me. Dad, why are you here? Feng Jiao slowly stood up, smiled and said to him. The king of Qin suddenly sent the betrothal gift together with King of Qi. This makes me feel really uneasy. These two brothers have been on bad terms with each other. It was one thing for the king of Qi to be responsible for Cheonga, but he insisted on marrying you and made her his concubine. What should we do? Feng Wucai impatiently paced back and forth, not in the mood to look at the graceful lotus. Father, didn't King of Qi already send me the marriage annulment letter? Why did he suddenly go back on his words? When Feng Jiao heard this, she was shocked. She thought that it's only the King of Qin, but King of Qi? Could it be that he regretted annulling the engagement? After so much trouble, those two people were here to give her the betrothal gift. Would Feng Jiqiong be angry if she found out? Thinking up to here, Feng Jiao's lips curved up in a playful smile. It is said that the betrothal gift given by King of Qi is given by his mother, imperial concubine Duan. Yao, what should we do? We could not afford to offend either sides. I'm so worried. Feng Wucai looked worried, as if he had suffered a great enmity. Dad, I have a way, come over here. Feng Jiao told Feng Wucai what she had thought of. Yao, is this a safe way to deal with this? God, didn't that mean him refusing the two princes' requests? Father, do you have a way to split me in half? Feng Jiao still had a faint smile on her face as her eyes landed on the clear lake water. Feng Wucai was stunned for a while before he shook his head helplessly. That's it. Father, quickly find someone to do this and I will do the same. Feng Jiao's face was full of victory, her smile blossoming like a flower. Okay, you're the daughter I doted with my heart. I won't allow you to marry into the royal family. I'll do as you say. Feng Wucai's face was full of worry as he lovingly looked at Feng Jiao. The king of Qin's mansion wasn't a simple, elegant and beautiful building. Instead, it was like a luxurious palace. Seriously, the phoenix pavilions and dragon temples were serene and majestic. A jade-white lake pavilion was built atop the rippling waves of the blue lake. On both sides of the pavilion were white jade steps. On the stone steps were carved auspicious clouds and qilins. In the pavilion at the heart of the lake, the pink muslin fluttered gently. Occasionally, melodious zither music floated by. Outside the pavilion, there was a beautiful maid playing the zither, elegant and graceful. In the pavilion, a clear and melodious male voice rang out, "Fourth brother, your chaptress skills are becoming more and more good. I've lost to you again." The young man who spoke wore a set of white clothes with a few delicate green bamboos embroidered on the sleeves. His black hair was tied with a white jade hairpin. Although he was laughing calmly, he didn't care about winning or losing at all. 18th brother, you didn't come here today to play chaptress with your fourth brother, right? Across from the man in white, a young man lying on a bed made from fine pear would lazily cast a glance at him. His eyes were bright like stars, and his sword-like eyebrows were like paintings. A graceful and leisurely smile hung on his handsome face. Fourth brother, The white-clothed man was Xianyuan Haoyun. Now that Xianyuan Haoyun saw through his thoughts, he wanted to say something, but hesitated. Forget it, you may leave first. Xianyuan Haoyun waved his hand at the beautiful servant who was playing the zither, and that well-trained maid excused herself. Brother 18th, it's just the two of us here. If you have something to say, just say it. Xianyuan Haoyun's long and flawless hand could be said to be perfect, leisurely sipping a delicate cup of tea. Provoking after letting out a sigh, Xianyuan Haoyun's sight fell on the place where the jade-like ornament was hanging on Xianyuan Haoyun's waist. Fourth brother, where's your jade qilin? Jade qilin? I gave it away. Xianyuan Haoyun thought of that unique girl and a smile appeared on his pretty thin lips, carrying a bit of tenderness. Seeing this, Xianyuan Haoyun's lips twitch-chaptered violently. When did the indifferent fourth brother have su-chapter an expression? Fourth brother, you're crazy. What an important thing, why did you give it away so easily? Even though he knew that fourth brother had given the jade qilin to a woman, he couldn't give it to the woman who had her marriage annulled by King of Qi. This was the first time Xianyuan Haoyun spoke in a sullen tone. He stood up in a huff, gazing at the white lotus blooming on the lake. He shook his head once again, expressing his anger and helplessness towards Xianyuan Haoyun for giving out the jade qilin. Because it's important, I want to give it to her. Xinyuan Haohan thought back to Feng Jiao's smiling face. His dark eyes narrowed, and his thick eyelashes were like wings, lightly hiding a trace of emotion that he shouldn't have in his eyes. Fourth brother, you're attracted. Xinyuan Haoyun's words weren't a question, but a confirmation. That was why he went to the Prime Minister's mansion to present the betrothal gift. 18th brother, she saved me when I was following the man in black into the Prime Minister's mansion and got my arm hurt when fighting with 7th brother. Now that her marriage has been annulled by 7th brother, and I promised her a favor before, so I went to the Prime Minister's mansion to give her a betrothal gift. Xinyuan Haohan thought about his fight with Feng Jiao and a hint of appreciation flashed across his eyes. Su chapter, a unique woman was rare in the world. But 4th brother, 7th brothers and your betrothal gifts have arrived at the Prime Minister's mansion at the same time. Sigh, the two of you have scared the young lady out of her wits, right? Several imperial doctors said that the eldest miss of Prime Minister is suffering from an illness. Perhaps the days are numbered. Xinyuan Haoyun's elegant fingers slowly rotated the exquisite white jade teacup in his hand. The transparent liquid in the teacup was reflected in a pair of dark eyes that were like the ocean. Sick? Time is running out? Xinyuan Haohan gently smiled. His voice was like a clear spring that pierced through dense fog. He suddenly stood up, bent down, and picked up a lacquered wooden fish basin that was placed near the chapteress board on the stone table. That girl must still be in love with 7th brother. Well, it was hard, but he couldn't find a single mistake in her move. Since she was suffering from a vicious disease, how could he force her to marry to him? However, this was good as well. At the very least, the 7th brother wouldn't receive any benefits. 4th brother, do you think we should go to Prime Minister's mansion together to visit the young lady who is suffering from a severe illness? Xinyuan Haoyun found that he was in silence, so he thoughtfully suggested. No, she's doing it on purpose. How can I go and expose her? Let her do it. One day she will be a meek kitten in my arms. Putting down the fish basin, Xinyuan Haohan turned around and sat down once again. Holding a cup of tea, he slowly rubbed the rim of the cup, speaking in a faint voice while his eyes flashed with unintentional doting. 4th brother, it seems like Nineth brother's people secretly contacted the people from the Shi Liang kingdom. Did the person you were tracking escape to the Prime Minister's mansion and then disappear? Xinyuan Haoyun had always been close with Xinyuan Haohan, so he would pay attention to matters related to Xinyuan Haohan. Yes, this matter is still under investigation. That's right, you should pay more attention to 2nd brother. It seems that he has gone to pay his respects to father a lot more recently. It's better if we don't move. Xinyuan Haohan's sword-like brows furrowed. Since when did that 2nd brother become so smart? I'm afraid someone gave him some secret instructions. Xinyuan Haoyun saw his 4th brother Xinyuan Haohan mention the crown prince, Xinyuan Haochaptran. His face was displeased, his eyes filled with disdain. 18th brother, please don't say Su chapter things. Who doesn't know that our father doted on our 2nd brother the most? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been established as the next ruler of our Nanshao kingdom at the age of 3. Xinyuan Haohan hurriedly looked around, his expression stern. 4th brother, didn't father make him the crown prince because he loved his mother deeply? Xinyuan Haoyun nodded. After a short moment, he put down the stubborn cup in his hand and elegantly stood up with his hands behind his back, looking as relaxed as a bamboo. His white clothes fluttered, showing an indescribable elegance. After a long time, Xinyuan Haoyun saw that Xinyuan Haohan did not reply, so he turned around only to see that he was the only one in the pavilion. He sighed and lowered his eyes to see the black and white chapteress board with the word wait spelled out on it. 4th brother, I understand. He thought to himself, 4th broth, you do have foresight. A look of admiration flashed across Xinyuan Haoyun's handsome face. His 4th brother was the best candidate to inherit the throne of Nanshao Kingdom. Begonia Garden of Prime Minister's Mansion. Eldest miss, it's time to take some medicine. Ziyun carried a bowl of black medicine and walked over to Feng Jiao's bed with small and quick steps. Ah, you know I'm just pretending, why are you still asking me to drink this medicine? Feng Jiao lazily pushed the bowl away. Young Master Yi, look at her. Ziyun rubbed her forehead, looking at Yi Weiyang with a sorrowful look. Yao, didn't you say that you have to disguise yourself a little more? Yi Weiyang received Ziyun's distress signal and immediately persuaded with a taut face. In his heart, he was still angry at her for using the act of pretending to be sick to curse herself. Moreover, she didn't discuss it with him, just did it. But, however, this is already the 10th bowl of bird's nest that I drank. Damn it. Are you guys going to make up for me? Feng Jiao stared at that bowl with a face full of bitterness and hatred. Please, she wanted to be free, but other than feigning illness, what else could she do? She didn't want to refute the royal family's honor, but she didn't want to implicate the people of the Prime Minister's mansion. So, Yao, I was wrong. Yi Weiyang helplessly took the medicinal bowl from Ziyun's hands. After drinking a few mouthfuls of medicine, the bottom of the bowl was turned upside down. That's more like it. Give me the antidote in a few days. This medicine has made me so weak that I can't even get out of bed. What was unlucky was that she couldn't sleep with the beautiful man these days. She hated it. Second miss, eldest miss is ill and cannot meet the visitors. The 4 maidservants outside stopped someone. The reason why I wanted to go in and chapterek up on her is because I care about my sister's illness. How could you lowly maidservant stop me? Feng Jiqiong barged in arrogantly with her new maidservant, Kai Hong. Hearing this, Feng Jiao frowned, raising her hand to signal Yi Weiyang to stay away first. Ah, this is Su chapter a timely illness. Feng Jiqiong's sarcastic words flew into Feng Jiao's ears. Do you think you're sick and it's over? You must have done something to my mother that night. You are truly vicious, causing her to be disgraced. That I was drugged with love potion must have something connected with you. After the mockery, her red eyes stared at Feng Jiao as if she was looking at an enemy. I'm vicious? It can't compare to how someone's heart is like snake or scorpion. Feng Jiao originally wanted to close her eyes and rest, but Feng Jiqiong was barking like a mad dog, making her very angry. That was why she mocked and ridiculed her. Falsely injure you. Feng Jiqiong pointed her slender jade finger at Feng Jiao, scolding her with a red face and neck. When she saw that Feng Jiao was alone, and Ziyun immediately turned around to leave after seeing her, didn't even offer her a cup of tea, she was so angry that almost ground her teeth to pieces. If Feng Jiao was dead, then wouldn't brother Hao be hers? If Feng Jiao died, she wouldn't need to be a lowly concubine. In any case, she was suffering from a vicious disease and didn't have Mu chapter time left. Even if she died now, father wouldn't be able to find Feng Jiqiong's fault. Kai Hong, you can leave first. I have something to say to big sister Jiao alone. After thinking this way, Feng Jiqiong lowered her eyes, hiding the resentment in her eyes. Go, I have nothing to talk to you about. Feng Jiao said coldly when she saw that Feng Jiqiong had dismissed the servant girl. Indeed, there is nothing to talk about. You are already suffering from illness and I'm afraid that you will not be far from death. I don't mind personally sending you off. Feng Jiqiong pulled out the golden hairpin from her hair, and a vicious look flashed across her white face. With just you? Kill her? Isn't it a bit comical? Feng Jiao laughed out loud when she heard this. God must have seen how tired she was to pretend to be sick, so he sent this stupid woman, Feng Jiqiong, to tease her. What are you laughing at? Feng Jiqiong thought that Feng Jiao would be trembling with fear. I laugh at your stupidity. I don't think that Xianyuan Haofei will really like you. I feel that you are very pitiful. Who didn't know that the backyard of the king of Qi King's mansion was full of beautiful ladies? Feng Jiao, you say that again. Feng Jiqiong was extremely angry. Golden Hairpin's sharpest head was already stabbing at Feng Jiao's neck at lightning speed. Feng Jiao secretly told Yi Weiyang not to take action, she would take care of it herself. Outside the door. What are you all doing here? Why don't you go in to serve? As soon as Feng Wankai left the imperial court, he came to the begonia garden to see Feng Jiao. However, when he saw the girls standing outside the door, he loudly berated them. Damn it, Daddy was here. Feng Jiqiong angrily wanted to pull back the golden hairpin, but unexpectedly, she was caught by Feng Jiao's slender fingers. Dad, help. Sister Cheonger is crazy. She wants to kill me. Who? Feng Jiao was crying in pain. Her eyes were cold as she quietly snatched the golden hairpin away. She turned her hand to stab at Feng Jiqiong's hand, broke the tendons of Feng Jiqiong's hand. A moment later, the sound of people screaming and wailing each chapterode in the room, making Feng Wucai, who had just entered the room, feel a chapter-ill run down his spine. Feng Jiao had long thrown away the golden hairpin, her face full of fear, with tears streaming down. She got off the bed, crawled in front of Feng Wucai's boots and said, Father? Father, I wasn't able to dodge when Sister Jiqiong wanted to kill me. But she hurt her hand by mistake. Who? Feng Jiao sneered in her heart. I have plenty of time to deal with you little by little. Ooh, Father, my hand. It was her. This slut broke my tendons. I can't play zither anymore. Feng Jiqiong struggled to shout out in pain, but it gradually became intense pain. Her face was pale, and beads of sweat covered her forehead. Tears flowed out from her eyes, interweaving with sweat. Pa! A loud sound was heard as it mercilessly landed on Feng Jiqiong's face. You murdered your sister, and you still have the face to say, someone, family law. Feng Wankai had been so depressed that he couldn't vent his anger because of Feng Jiqiong's mother's Su Qiaoyin chapter reading on him. Now that she gave him the chaptrance, he would not let it go. Father! I am also your daughter, Feng Jiqiong screamed hysterically. The tight pain in her heart made her feel like she was about to suffocate. Yaoer, the ground is cold. Stand up quickly. Although Feng Wucai knew that Feng Jiao was feigning illness, but he had always doted on this daughter of his first wife, so he naturally believed her words. Dad, I was wrong, I mistakenly injured Sister Cheonger. Dad, you should punish me with the family law too. In order to be more realistic, Feng Jiao kneeled down again. Yaoer, you're unintentional. Oh, get up, Ziyun, come and help your young lady. While Feng Wankai was speaking, he had already raised his hand and ordered the servants to punish Feng Jiqiong. After being beaten by 30 times, Feng Jiqiong's weak body was finally awakened by the splash of cold water. Father, spare little Sister Jiqiong. Feng Jiao seemed to be sympathetic as she deliberately tried to persuade him. She already wants to kill you, yet you're still speaking up for her. Perhaps Feng Wucai was really angry, but after getting up, he quickly left. Second miss. Let's go back and apply the medicine. With reddened eyes, Kai Hong helped the scarred Feng Jiqiong up. Bit chapter, you and I are irreconcilable. These were the first words Feng Jiqiong said when she opened her eyes. Hearing this, Feng Jiao covered her mouth and smiled. I'm so scared. These words angered Feng Jiqiong so much that she vomited blood. In the end, she had Kai Hong carry her back to Plum Court. July 24th, 2 days after Feng Jiqiong had been picked the tendons out of her hand, Su Mayan received the news and came to Prime Minister's mansion. Begonia Garden. Lotus Pond winding path, small bridge running water, curved bridge veranda winding, crabapple blossoms and iris flowers reflected in the lake. In the center of the lake, the Hulwan Pavilion was exquisite and beautiful. Lying on the beautiful bed in the pavilion, one could see the clear water and the impressive blue sky and white clouds. On the shores of the lake were pavilions situated within the forest and flowers, and the scenery was picturesque. At this moment, Feng Jiao, who was wearing a white dress, was lying on the beautiful bed. In her hands was an ancient book that was slightly yellow, blocking her peerless appearance. A few strands of hair that had been blown by the breeze also fluttered in the air. Yao, you've been reading for a long time. Yi Weiyang looked at the ancient book in her hands, cold sweat dripping profusely. Don't make noise, I have to take a closer look. Let's try it out tonight. Feng Jiao randomly turned to another page, attentively reading it. Yao, you've been reading it for 2 hours. Yi Weiyang secretly hated himself for agreeing to give her the erotic painting collection. She was only reading the painting collection, didn't care about anything else. As I read it, isn't it all for our future sexual blessings? Feng Jiao chapteruckled and moved the book away with a serious face. Yao, why didn't you let me do anything last time? She wanted to kill you. If it wasn't for you being clever, the one got injured would be you. When Yi Weiyang thought about how Feng Zhiqiang wanted to kill Feng Zhiyao, he began to worry. Weiyang, I just want to slowly play her to death. Feng Zhiyao's smile was extremely coquettish, like dew in the morning mist. It looked pure and spotless, but Yi Weiyang couldn't help but shiver upon seeing it. Eldest Miss, young Master Su is here. Ziyun walked over from afar with a plate of exquisite pastries in her hands as she reminded in a small voice. Weiyang, I'll have to trouble you to dodge again. Feng Zhiyao was annoyed. She raised her pretty eyebrows and thought to herself, is Su Mayan coming to punish her? Chapter 31 Miscary? Feng Zhiyao what-chaptered from afar as Su Mayan walked towards the Hiyuan pavilion. Her rosy chapterary lips still maintained her faint smile. Looking up, her eyes fell on him. He was clad in a gorgeous silver silk robe, and the petals of the begonia flower were slowly falling on his body. They were fragrant as they flew over. The silk robe was embroidered with a dazzling gold shard. A few gold threads were outlined on the sleeves and the hem of the robe. A gentle breeze blew, and the tassel beneath the robe fluttered in the breeze. He was elegant and noble, a peerless handsome. Ignoring the taut face, he was really a noble and elegant young master. But reality was cruel. Sister Chionger's hand tendons? Did you really break it? He looked gentle and noble. His eyes were smiling, but the pupils seemed indifferent. They were as bright and indifferent as a crystalline flower of water, captivating and seemingly untainted by dust. Unfortunately, the smile did not within his eyes. At this moment, he seemed to be asking her a question, but already had a conclusion. Accidental injury. Feng Zhiyao elegantly and blandly turned her body towards Su Mayan. The expression on her extremely beautiful face was as calm as still water. Are you here to chapterarge me guilty? Do you know how important a pair of unblemished hands can be to someone who loves playing the zither? You've ruined Sister Chionger's life. Su Mayan's expression chapteranged as he furiously spoke. The smile disappeared and his lips carried a trace of coldness. Feng Zhiyao gently nodded, slowly moving forward. The tassel on her waist emitted a slight sound of collision. It was clear and elegant, and her movements emitted a trace of a flirtatious and noble aura. It was Feng Zhiqiang who wanted to kill me, and I accidentally injured her hands to protect myself. Shouldn't I fight back but wait for your dear sister Chionger to kill me? Feng Zhiyao's eyes shifted, her red lips slightly raised. With a frown and a smile, she was gorgeous. Her elegant white clothes brought out a refreshing fragrance, while her black hair fluttered in the wind. But you can't just break her hand tendons like that. She's your half-sister. Su Mayan stared at Feng Zhiyao in front of him. Her expression became serious as he lowered his long eyelashes, unable to conceal the killing intent in his eyes. Should I be grateful to have Su chapter as sister? I haven't forgotten who's so shameless to took my man away. Feng Zhiyao saw Su Mayan's expression without revealing anything. Her red lips slowly formed a faintly discernible arc. He wanted to kill her? Did he have the ability? A few days ago, he had scolded her for being shameless. Today, she would settle the score with him. She met the pair of flaming black eyes. With a light smile, her eyebrows were dyed red as they flowed past. At this moment, specks of light were dancing around the flower petals of the begonia flower. They were dancing on the confident, calm, and elegant face. It was as if she was a dream or a fantasy. Her beauty was somewhat unreal. Su Mayan suddenly looked over and his heart trembled. It was as if someone had suddenly thrown a small stone into the usually quiet lake, sending out circle after circle of ripples. Took my man away. He felt that this half-sentence made him very uncomfortable. Of course, he also didn't like to listen to it. Therefore, his good-looking sword-shaped eyebrows slightly chaptered in a straight line. What? Nothing to say? Feng Zhiyao was very surprised by his performance. She had already spoken in Su chapter in overbearing manner. How could he just stare at her in a daze without saying a word? No, he must have been possessed. He thought she was beautiful, Yes, he must have been possessed. She had hurt his sister Cheong. How could Su chapter a vicious girl mat chapter him? Su Mayan. Feng Jiao, if you break your own tendons, I won't make things difficult for you for now. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving you face. Su Mayan straightened his expression. His eyes were cold like stars, and there was a deep blue lake in the depths of his eyes. His expression was deep and clear, containing a cold and dense anger within it. The giving face? This is so funny. Was she a fool? If someone's tendons need to be broken, it should be his. What kind of relative was he? Su Mayan, you're dreaming. Feng Jiao scolded with a cold voice. Her pretty face suddenly turned dark. Su Mayan looked deeply at Feng Jiao. As soon as she finished speaking, he could feel the icy coldness that emanated from her body. This cold indifference came from her bones. A white figure ran over from afar and grabbed Su Mayan's sleeve. Cousin, kill her for me. Tease Feng Jiqiong, who had just heard the news, was rushing over. She fiercely stared at Feng Jiao, her venomous eyes as sharp as swords. I want her dead. I must make her die. Feng Jiqiong was wearing a white robe. Her hair was disheveled and she looked like a ghost. The smile on her face was sinisterly cold. Feng Jiqiong looked at Feng Jiao's extremely gloomy face. She felt a little scared for some reason. She remembered that her wrist was agilely held by Feng Jiao that day. A trace of panic flashed across her eyes, so she tightly held onto Su Mayan's arm for safety. Cousin, help me. Su Mayan, if you really do chapter a strand of my hair, then mighty heavenly castle will forever disappear. Feng Jiao sensed Yi Weiyang emotional fluctuations, who was hidden nearby. Her long eyelashes drooped down, covering her eyes that were as cold as water. She sneered in her heart, they really are cousins. Cousin, don't listen to that slut's nonsense. Cousin, quickly help me get rid of her. At this moment, Feng Jiqiong was like a berserk female wolf. Her eyes were bright red with blood stains. How noisy! Feng Jiao's interest was dashed when she heard this. She gently flicked her slender fingers and sent out a sharp embroidery needle. Could this stupid woman chapter-arrange her lines? Who could be so chapter-reap as to compete with her? Cousin, it hurts. Feng Jiqiong only felt a hot wetness between her legs as she covered her stomachapter and cried out in pain. That sticky feeling made her entire body uncomfortable. Soon after, the mottled blood slowly dyed her white dress. Feng Jiao was shocked. No way. Her body is so fragile. Why did her good sister bleed so chapter when she just secretly shot her with an embroidery needle? Had she miscarried? Chapter 32 Force him to pay the debt. Su Mayan quickly carried Feng Jiqiong in his arms. With a tap of his feet, he rapidly dashed through the crabapple woods and headed towards the plum court. Before he left, he gave Feng Jiao a fierce glare. If anything happens to Cheong, I won't forgive you. His tone was cold, and within the coldness, there was a strong, unquestionable aura. Feng Jiao gazed at his back, sneering sweetly like a blooming poppy. How could she be afraid of him? After a long while, when Su Mayan disappeared around the corner while carrying Feng Jiqiong, Yi Weiyang's thin lips curved into a beautiful smile. He stood straight on the shore of the lake, while his white clothes and black hair floated up at the same time. Under the reflection of the petals of the pink begonia, he looked like the cloud blocking the moon, floating like the breeze blowing back the snow, an indescribable jade tree facing the wind, extremely graceful. Yao, do you want me to destroy mighty heavenly castle for you? When Feng Jiao turned her gaze towards him, he asked. His tone was very doting, with 90% indulgence and 80% admiration. His voice was as clear and pleasant as ever. No need. She gave Yi Weiyang a deep look. I like to control everything. The light in her eyes circulated like white plum, clear like spring water. All right. Yi Weiyang nodded. This was the girl he liked, never a delicate daughter that needed to rely on someone. Weiyang, why hasn't your master appeared recently? Feng Jiao smiled and chapter-arranged the topic. Didn't the old man say that he liked food? Why hasn't he come in a long time? Master is in closed-door cultivation. Yi Wei-yang extended his arms, gently embracing her. Oh. Feng Jiao nodded and said, I've been staying in the begonia garden for so many days because I was pretending to be sick. I feel like I'm about to get moldy. Why don't you take me out for a stroll tonight? During the day, she naturally couldn't go out. She had a serious illness and went out to play. Wasn't that contradictory? All right. Yi Wei-yang's eyes were filled with traces of tender affection. Under the illumination of the warm sun, he calmly looked around. In the evening, Feng Jiao and Yi Wei-yang were about to chapter-arrange their clothes and leave. A servant came to report that the king of Qi had arrived. You can't beat me, so you find helpers? Wei-yang, since the king of Qi wants to see me, wait for me at the begonia garden first. I'll go to Plum Court now. All right. Yi Wei-yang's thin lips slightly pursed, but in the end he still couldn't be at ease. Therefore, after Feng Jiao left, he quietly followed behind her and also went to the Plum Court. He saw a group of servants kneeling before the entrance of Plum Court, as well as a white-bearded old imperial doctor who was trembling as he prostrated himself on the ground. Father! Feng Jiao walked towards Feng Wucai with an angry face, asked in a delicate voice, What's wrong with Sister Qiong'er? There were traces of concern in her tone. Feng Jiao, you still have the face to ask? Sister Qiong'er is so angry that she has miscarried. Su Mayan angrily walked out of the room and cursed at Feng Jiao. Miscarriage? Impossible. She remembered that the embroidery needle had only shot at Feng Jiqiong's legs, but it wasn't enough to make her miscarriage. To be pregnant before getting married, who would have the face to do that? Even if he wanted to scold her, he should think about it. Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows and sneered. Being pregnant before marriage, in modern times, might not be that big of a deal, but in ancient times, it was a fatal beat to girls. All right, Yenner, this matter has caused shame to our Prime Minister. Talk no more. No one is allowed to reveal this matter. If someone divulges the secret, the family law will punish them severely. Feng Wucai's eyes swept across the room with a cold glint in his eyes. His face was ashen as he ordered his servants. Your King of Qi Highness, when will you marry Sister Qiong'er? At the side, Su Mayan remembered pale-faced Feng Jiqiong earlier. Her handsome face darkened, then said to Xinyuan Haofei, I did not mention marrying her. Xinyuan Haofei's face was green and red mixed with white, looking extremely funny. Back then, his mother had wanted him to marry Feng Jiao, the daughter of Prime Minister's first wife, as his wife. Because Feng Jiqiong was born from a concubine, she could only be his concubine. Now that Feng Jiqiong suddenly had miscarried, Su Mayan's intention was for him to marry her. He really overestimated himself. Then does your highness not wish to take responsibility for my sister Qiong'er? Feng Jiao asked. Hearing Feng Jiao's words, Su Mayan was slightly startled. Shouldn't it be him to ask? How did she ask? Yao, don't spout nonsense. Feng Wucai was angry and wanted to stop Feng Jiao from talking. Back then, His Highness the King of Qi delivered me a marriage annulment letter. It can be seen that King of Qi loves Sister Qiong'er. He was so decisive back then. Why is he unwilling to take responsibility for little Sister Qiong'er today? Feng Jiao coldly glanced at Xinyuan Haofei and asked. Xinyuan Haofei held his tongue in his throat, unable to do anything after hearing her words. King of Qi Highness, I also mean it. Seeing the blinking eyes that Feng Jiao had given him, Feng Wucai reluctantly said, This matter, I'll have to report this to father and mother before making any plans. Xinyuan Haofei coldly stared at Feng Jiao. Was she still the same Feng Jiao loved him so much back then? She actually forced him to marry her little sister. Yaoer, aren't you seriously ill? Have you recovered? Xinyuan Haofei threw an killing eye over, causing Feng Jiao to curse herself for being reckless. However, in order to torture Feng Jiqiong a little more thoroughly, she needed to promote this marriage. Who didn't know that the concubines in King of Qi's mansion were chapter-reaming? She just happened to borrow a knife to kill someone. To be able to chapter a show while torturing the target? What a good deal. It is precisely because of my illness, so I hope to see Sister Qiong'er marriage as soon as possible. Feng Jiao pitifully blinked her beautiful eyes, then lowered her head and said honestly. Yi Weiyang heard these words, his lips twitch-chaptered, but his eyes were filled with incomparable doting. Your king of Qi, Highness, even though Sister Qiong'er is like this, she is still the pearl of mighty heavenly castle. When Xianyuan Haofei left, Su Mayan reminded him coldly with a smile that wasn't actually a smile. At this moment, Feng Jiao was a little envious of Feng Jiqiong. She had Su Mayan's sincere protection. Serve second miss well. There are certain things that you should not say. Be smart. Seeing Xianyuan Haofei leave, Feng Wankai turned around and scolded the maidservants of Plum Court. Yes, sir. The maidservants hurriedly knelt down and said yes. Imperial Dr. Lin, thank you for today's matter. Feng Wuzai helped Imperial Dr. Lin, who was still feeling uneasy after Xianyuan Haofei's reprimand, to stand up, and said after calming his expression. Thank you, Prime Minister. I should leave. Glimmers danced in Imperial Dr. Lin's eyes as he trembled, wanting to leave. Wait, Feng Jiao felt that Imperial Dr. Lin's expression was strange, so she quickly raised her voice to stop him from leaving. Chapter 33. When Imperial Dr. Lin heard this, his body stiffened slightly before he stopped. Imperial Dr. Lin, has little sister Jiqiong really miscarried? Feng Jiao felt that the white-bearded old man had a strange expression on his face. That was why she stopped him. Yes. Imperial Dr. Lin nodded without any hesitation, but his hands were trembling in his wide sleeves. Inner chapter amber had already been filled with Feng Jiqiong's wails. This chapterild should be king of Qi's descendants. Feng Jiao turned her head and cast a glance inside the room. She lowered her head slightly and played with her white fingers. W chapter were as white as sheep fat and as smooth as skull. She thought to herself, why did King of Qi let Feng Jiqiong miscarriage? Feng Jiao, Imperial Dr. Lin is one of the best among the imperial doctors. How could he misdiagnose her? Su Mayan coldly stared at her and scolded. Imperial Dr. Lin, you better speak the truth. Feng Jiao ignored Su Mayan and crossed her arms, looking down at the elderly Imperial Dr. Lin. Of course it was the truth. Prime Minister Feng, I have matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave first. Imperial Dr. Lin was scared witless by Feng Jiao's gaze, so he hurriedly excused himself. Feng Wuzai's expression was gloomy. He merely gave an before Butler Feng leading Imperial Dr. Lin out of the Plum Court. Shameful. Su Mayan glared at her and coldly snorted. Young Master Su, I only wanted to ask about this because of little sister Jiqiong. Don't you think that his King of Qi Highness's attitude is completely different from before? Feng Jiao sneered and reminded him slowly. Before this, he would marry no one but Feng Jiqiong, but now Su chapter a thing had happened, he was hesitant. How ridiculous. Su Mayan's probing gaze landed on Feng Jiao's face. His thin lips were tightly pursed, his thoughts were in a mess, and his heart was like raging waves. Could it really be like what Feng Jiao guessed, that this Imperial Dr. Lin was really trying to harm Sister Qiong? The more Su Mayan thought about it, the more likely it was. Thus, Su Mayan clasped his hands in farewell to Feng Wuzai and quickly chapter-raced after Imperial Dr. Lin. Yaoer, are you saying that the incident of miscarriaging was instigated by the Qi King? Feng Wuzai was also a smart person. When he saw Su Mayan chapter-race after Imperial Dr. Lin, he quickly pulled Feng Jiao to a secluded place of Plum Court. After confirming that there was no one around, he asked in a low voice. Dad, I'm just guessing. There's no proof. Damn King of Qi, it was best not to hinder her from chaptering the show. Father's punishment had not even let Feng Jiqiong miscarriage before, so the only explanation was that King of Qi wanted Feng Jiqiong to miscarriage. King of Qi might not be as fond of Feng Jiqiong as the servants of Prime Minister's mansion said. Feng Jiao secretly laughed in her heart. Damn it, it's lucky that the marriage has been annulled, otherwise, Feng Jiqiong's fate would have been mine. Feng Wuzai kept silent for a long time. In the end, his face darkened and he didn't say anything. He waved hand and let Feng Jiao return to the begonia garden to rest. Yaoer, you're back? Yi Weiyang was already waiting at the entrance of the begonia garden before Feng Jiao returned. We can go for a walk. Will you let me chapter-arrange my clothes first? Feng Jiao looked at Yi Weiyang, who was standing at the door, smiled and walked over, lightly pun-chaptered him on the chapterist, and softly said, Yao, it's too late. Let's go tomorrow night. Yi Weiyang raised his head to look at the bright moon, shaking his head in refusal. All right, since I'm tired too, then carry me and sleep together. Feng Jiao extended her beautiful white arms with a smile. Her jade-like fingers drew circles in front of Yi Weiyang's chapterist. The corner of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. After added a few traces of chapter arm and laziness to her purity. All right. As Yi Weiyang spoke, he had already carried her into the inner room, then took off her clothes, blowing out the candle flame. On the great jade lake shore, the sun was bright and beautiful, the golden sunlight diagonally spilled down, the grass grew and the birds flew, the willow catkins brushed the rippling light of the lake surface, jade leaf and pink lotus were so beautiful. On top of an exquisite cruise boat, Feng Jiao, who was wearing a purple dress, was leaning against the white jade railings. Glistening beautiful, graceful standing, lake wind, blowing her skirt, hair as smooth as seaweed even raised a beautiful arc behind her. A pair of clear and intelligent eyes were like the spirit spring on a mountain. They were pure without a trace of impurities, but the smile was indeed that captivating. It was so crystal clear that one would never get tired of looking at it. Weiyang, why are you in a daze? Don't tell me my joke isn't funny? Feng Jiao raised her little hand and waved it in front of Yi Weiyang's eyes as she coquettishly said, No, it's funny, but you know, I'm not used to smiling. Yi Weiyang explained, afraid that after Feng Jiao found out his real identity, she would flee far away. Right, hey, no more jokes. Let's go to the tea house by the shore and have some snacks. Coming out so early in the morning without having eaten enough, Feng Jiao took the initiative to pull Yi Weiyang's hand up, with a sweet smile on her face. Yao, if we go to the tea house together, it will ruin your reputation. Yi Weiyang looked at the pair of dark and limpid eyes, obsessively looking at her flower-like chapter-arming face, as he spoke with an awkward red face. Then you want to protect me secretly? Feng Jiao gently smiled with her delicate eyebrows raised. The beautiful face of the begonia demonstration was like a beautiful flower in a lake. Under the shining sun, it emitted a beautiful, fresh, and elegant chapter arm. It was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off it. Yes. Yi Weiyang nodded honestly. He didn't want to make things difficult for her. Reputation? Idiot, I don't care. The worse, the better. Then no one came to bother her with the marriage proposal. Therefore, she went out in the daytime instead of her usual movement. Thinking up to this, Feng Jiao pursed her lips with a faint smile. After was dazzlingly enchanting. Besides, it's a wonderful thing to walk and have tea with a beautiful man. As soon as she finished speaking, she excused Ziyun, who was laughing secretly at her, off the cruise boat. She ordered her to buy some rouge from the Rong Fong shop, then they would meet up in Yuyang restaurant. Afterwards, she and Yi Weiyang slowly got off the cruise boat, walking slowly side by side. The combination of handsome men and beautiful women would always attract the attention of people. In the elegant room next to the window on the second floor of the Ming Chui restaurant, a handsome man dressed in orange clothes was standing there majestically, holding a white jade cup in his hand as he stared at the street. Of course, he also saw the scene of Yi Weiyang and Feng Jiao together. Chapter 34 Unexpected Guests. Weiyang, what's wrong? Feng Jiao's mind was sharp as she asked softly, sensing Yi Weiyang's strange behavior. However, Yi Weiyang only shook his head, and by the time he raised head to look at the private room on the second floor, the orange-clad man was already gone. Weiyang. Feng Jiao gently lowered her eyes. Her jet-black eyelashes gently blinked like the wings of a butterfly, and her red lips slightly raised. I'm fine. Yao, look. Ziyun is waving at us. Seeing Feng Jiao smile, Yi Weiyang's cold face gradually turned gentler. She raised her hand and pointed in the direction of Yuyang restaurant. And then let's hurry up and leave. Feng Jiao immediately raised her head to look in the direction he was pointing at after receiving Yi Weiyang's reminder. A smile like a pear blossom bloomed at the corner of her eyes. "Eldest miss, I've bought the rouge." Ziyun saw Feng Jiao and Yi Weiyang walking over, and hurriedly said with a laugh, "And let's go upstairs to have some tea. I will treat you." Feng Jiao smiled and said boldly. Yi Weiyang only felt a cold look on his back, as if it wanted to pierce through his back. When he turned around, he couldn't see anything. Yu Yang Restaurant, adjacent to the beautiful scenery of the Great Jade Lake, was very famous. The three-story building made from logs stood out among the historical sites. Compared to the other shops, it was like a crane among a flock of chapterikins. It was tall and dazzling. What was eye-catching was that the signboard of Yu Yang Restaurant was personally written by the Supreme Emperor himself. The golden words were written in flamboyant calligraphy, like flying dragons and dancing phoenixes. "Waiter, we want a private room." Ziyun smiled and said under Feng Jiao's gaze. "The private room is on the second floor. Ladies and gentlemen, please follow me upstairs." A waiter from the Yu Yang Restaurant greeted them with a smile. "The environment is all right." Feng Jiao looked around the room with a faint smile. The waiter was very efficient and served tea very quickly. They had barely sat down for the time of drinking half a cup of tea when unexpected guests arrived. "Yao, who is he?" There were two beautiful men standing outside the door. The man walking in front asked Feng Jiao, "It's been a long time since the engagement being cancelled. Why are you calling me so intimate?" "King of Qi, I've already broken off the engagement with you. Please don't call me by my maiden name." Feng Jiao noticed Yi Weiyang's slightly frowning expression and immediately corrected Xianyuan Haofei. Hearing this, Xianyuan Haofei's expression became somewhat awkward, and a small flame inexplicably ignited in his heart. "Did you find someone else?" Ziyun looked at the furious Xianyuan Haofei and hurriedly moved behind Feng Jiao. Although she was afraid of King of Qi, she also felt awful about what happened to her eldest miss. These words were really unpleasant to hear. Hearing this, Yi Weiyang's gaze turned cold. He pursed his lips in displeasure, and the spirit serpent's sword in his hand trembled. Feng Jiao shook head at Yi Weiyang, indicating for him to be quiet. Seeing Feng Jiao and Yi Weiyang sitting so close, Situ Yele was very jealous that that man could drink tea together with Feng Jiao, but he couldn't. "Your Highness is really humorous. It's someone ignored me first." Feng Jiao ungracefully rolled her eyes at Xianyuan Haofei. "Bullshit King of Qi. What did he want?" Xianyuan Haofei was rendered speech-afterless by her words. It was really difficult for him to connect her elegant zither playing with her sharp words. "Your King of Qi, Highness, I'm sorry. Today, I only invited this young master to taste the tea, so..." Feng Jiao didn't continue, but only smiled gently. Her meaning was, she only invited Yi Weiyang, so fuck off. Yi Weiyang looked at Situ Yele, and Situ Yele looked at him with a scrutinizing gaze. Yi Weiyang found that he was in orange silk clothes, immediately remembering the man he met in Ming Chui restaurant. As soon as he entered, his eyes were glued to Yao's body. Could it be that he also liked Yao? When he thought here, he felt rather uncomfortable and glared at Situ Yele. Situ Yele did not back down. He coldly looked at Yi Weiyang with eyes as cold as ice. "I think that this young master doesn't mind if I and the head of Situ family join you, right?" Xianyuan Haofei arrogantly pointed out his and Situ Yele's identities, implying that Yi Weiyang should take the initiative to leave. "He doesn't mind, I do." When Feng Jiao saw Xianyuan Haofei, she felt that he was too hypocritical. How could she still have tea with him? She stood up as soon as she finished speaking. "Yao, my treat, is it okay?" When Situ Yele saw Xianyuan Haofei was refused, he hurriedly laughed and said, "Damn it, it wasn't easy for him to get rid of Xianyuan Lingxi. Right now, the woman he fancied was right in front of him, but she was with a man who didn't have a high status. How could he endure this? Young Master Situ, can't I afford it?" Feng Jiao's beautiful eyes were crystal clear with a trace of cold light. Her eyes were as sharp as a sword that had been unsheathed. Cold air overflowed everywhere, making people not dare to look directly at her. Situ Yele didn't say anything for a long time. If it was anyone else, he would have already started scolding. Now that the girl he liked was standing in front of him, he didn't dare scold her. Bangso Ziyun. Let's go. It was Su chapter a disappointment. The tea was wasted. Fire burning in Feng Jiao's heart. Wait, Yao, you can't go with him. When Sidu Yele heard Feng Jiao call out Yi Weiyang's name, his expression changed drastically. Yi Weiyang unsheathed his spirit serpent sword and pointed it at Sidu Yele. The color of the sword light suddenly changed to blue. Spirit serpent sword. Xin Yuan Haofei's face suddenly turned deathly pale. Yao, quickly come over. This man is an assassin. If you're with him, you'll be in danger. Sidu Yele called out worriedly. He wanted to pull Feng Jiao away, but Feng Jiao dodged his hand. Whether there's danger or not, that's my own business. It has nothing to do with you. Feng Jiao shrugged her shoulders and said. Then she smiled sweetly and stretched out her lotus-white arm, taking the initiative to hook around Yi Weiyang's neck. Weiyang, don't worry about these flies, let's go somewhere else to taste the tea. Well? Feng Jiao yawned lazily, perhaps because she was sleepy. All right, sleep. When Yi Weiyang heard this, a faint smile appeared on his lips. He seemed to be doting and seemed to be gentle. He obediently put away the spirit serpent sword, held Feng Jiao, and walked out of the restaurant. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.